Chapter 176. Inside the room. Now, it was not only the ground that was cracking, but even the walls had been shaken to the point where rocks and snow were flying everywhere, and the ceiling was falling continuously. You are an early primal core adept, and yet you have the ability to defeat a mid-primal core adept. No matter how skillful you are, that is your limit. Tuaku's eyes were indifferent as he rose from the ground, his face expressionless, as if he was talking about something unimportant. The power of a late primal core adept is 10 times that of yours. 10 times the power. No matter how skillful you are, it is futile. Listening to Tuaku's words, it was obvious that Tuaku could tell that Zhou Donghuang had used skillful techniques to defeat Zheng Yong. Is that so? Zhou Donghuang smiled as he faced Tuaku, who had risen from the ground and was now flying through the air, his body glowing with a silver light. He threw out the fan in his hand. Whoosh! The fan flew through the air, spinning. At the same time, Zhou Donghuang followed like a shadow, landing on the fan and stepping on it to meet Tuaku. At the same time, the white light on the fan grew stronger. A spirit weapon? At this moment, not only Tuaku but the other 2 elders of the Divine Light sect, Zheng Yong and the old monk in the red robe, could all tell that the fan beneath Zhou Donghuang's feet was also a spirit weapon. Immediately, their eyes revealed a look of disbelief. The fact that Zhou Donghuang had just taken out a spirit weapon was enough to shock them, but now he had taken out another one, and from the looks of it, it was stronger than the previous one. If you can withstand this blow of mine, I will give you a spirit weapon for free. Just as the silver saber light in Taku's hand began to condense, ready to strike, he heard the indifferent words of the white-clothed youth who was flying towards him on his folding fan. Instantly, his heart trembled and his eyes narrowed. He could feel the young man's confidence. In the next moment he did not dare to act rashly. He was on full alert, staring at the young man in front of him as well as the spirit weapon beneath his feet. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The sound of whistling swords rang out. It was the folding fan beneath Zhou Donghuang's feet. Every rib of the fan seemed to transform into a sharp sword, carrying with it inner yuan as it shot out. In the blink of an eye, all 18 fan ribs had flown out, and there was nothing beneath Zhou Donghuang's feet. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the 18 fan ribs that flew out floated above Tuaku's head, forming a circle, and each fan rib seemed to form a mysterious connection. This was a type of sword formation. This is a formation. No matter what, Tuaku was still the 3rd elder of the Divine Light sect, and the Divine Light sect also had a simple combination of formations, so he could tell at a glance that what Zhou Donghuang was using now was a type of formation. You are quite knowledgeable. Zhou Donghuang said calmly, this formation of mine is called the 10 sides 8 direction sword formation. 10 sides lie in ambush, 8 sides turn into rain. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Donghuang rose into the air and in the blink of an eye appeared above the sword formation above Tuaku's head. He looked down at Tuaku as if he were standing on the sword formation. Crash. Crash. Without any warning, as Taku was completely focused and vigilant, the 8 fan ribs in the sky were like 8 swords falling from the sky, bringing with them a sky full of sword light, as if they were raining down on Taku. Tuaku snorted coldly, and the silver light on his body surged even further, making him look as if he was bathed in a silver light. In the face of absolute power, any fancy tricks are futile. Buzz. Buzz. At the same time, in Tuaku's hands, 2 silver inner yuan 4 feet long blades appeared. The blades were incomparably sharp and fierce. Then I'll wait and see. Zhou Donghuang laughed coldly. For a golden essence adept to say such words in front of him, it would have been fine. But a silver essence adept dared to doubt the power of the sword formation he was using? Ridiculous. You'll see soon enough. Tuaku laughed coldly, and the silver light on his body surged. As his hands danced, the 2 silver blades were like tigers blocking the way, easily blocking the sky full of swords. Clang, 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 clang. The 8 sword-like ribs of the fan were sent flying after being blocked, but they quickly made a comeback. It's no use. Tuaku fought bravely, fearlessly, and the 8 fan ribs were evenly matched. 3rd elder, watch your step. Tuaku's face changed completely when he heard Jing Yong's urgent voice. He then remembered that the young man was not only relying on the 8 fan ribs, but also the other 10. He had blocked the sword rain from all directions. But he had barely blocked it. Ambushed from all directions, how could he block it? Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The 10 fan ribs silently circled around Tuaku's body like sharp swords, and Tuaku, who was tired of dealing with the sword rain from all directions, became a defenseless target in the blink of an eye. Third elder, watch out. The old monk in the red robe was the first to move, wanting to help Taku. Whoosh. At this moment, one of the fan ribs changed direction in the air and flew directly towards him. I Tuaji am a mid-primal core adept. How can I not block one of the 18 fan ribs of a mere early primal core adept? Tuaji snorted coldly, and the milky white inner yuan in his hands swelled, transforming into two giant hands that grabbed at the incoming fan rib, intending to grab it. However, with a soft sound, Tuaji's muffled groan rang out. Blood spurted from his hands, and at the same time, there was a bloody wound on the side of his neck. Tuaji's face was bitter as he took 2 steps back. He knew that if his opponent had not been merciful, his throat would have been slit by now. Now, not only would he dare to attack again, but his opponent would also not be merciful, and he would not have the face to attack again. Whoosh. One of the fan ribs returned, and the ambush from all directions was formed once again. Even if Tuaku desperately tried to block it, he could not. At this moment, although his inner yuan was strong, it was completely useless. He could change the direction of his spear and try to kill the white rogue youth in one strike and destroy his formation, but before his attack could take shape, he would probably be turned into a hornet's nest by the fan ribs that were as sharp as swords. Flashes of sword light flashed from the fan ribs as they flew past Tuaku's hands, legs, neck and forehead, leaving clear bloody wounds. His originally neat and clean silver robe was now riddled with holes, and he looked extremely wretched. At this time, Tuaku could only smile bitterly and retract the silver inner yuan on his body. Looking up at the young man in white, he said, I have lost, I am no match for you. After seeing his opponent's methods, Tuaku was very clear. Unless the Golden Essence adepts of the Divine Light sect acted, no one in the Divine Light sect below the Golden Essence stage could be a match for this young man in white. Under the shocked gazes of Tuaku and the others, the 18 fan ribs returned to the young man's body and once again formed a folding fan, which the young man easily caught. When the young man, dressed in robes whiter than snow and holding a folding fan in his hand, descended from the sky and returned to his seat at the head of the table, the 3 elders of the Divine Light sect, led by Tuaku, no longer dared to underestimate the young man. Young master, I am the 3rd elder of the Divine Light sect, Tuaku. May I know your name? Tuaku bowed respectfully as he asked. Zhou Donghuang. Zhou Donghuang glanced at Tuaku. 50,000 spirit stones, prepare them as soon as possible. I will be away for a few days and I will look for you when I return. As he finished speaking, Zhou Donghuang stood up and prepared to leave. Also, before leaving, Zhou Donghuang remembered something and looked at Tuaku. You did not find some of the rare materials I asked you to look for in the black market. If the Divine Light sect has those materials, you can use them to exchange for spirit stones. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Donghuang led Suimo out of the battered room. After Zhou Donghuang and Suimo had left, Tuaku heaved a long sigh of relief, looking as if he had been relieved of a heavy burden. 3rd elder. Jing Yong asked gravely, what do you think? Who is he? Not only does he have many spirit weapons, but he is only at the early primal core stage and yet he has such power. It is incredible. Early primal core stage? Tuaku shook his head. He is definitely not just at the early primal core stage. When he fought with me just now, the pure explosive power of his inner yuan far exceeds that of a mid-primal core adept with the help of a spirit weapon. He must have some secrets on him. Although his inner yuan is only at the early primal core stage, the amount of it is not something an early primal core adept can compare to. Even an early primal core demon cannot compare. In the battle just now, Tuaku had discovered many problems. Next, you will manage the black market on my behalf. I will personally return to the sect. Tuaku said again. Over the next few days, Zhou Donghuang brought Suimo around the capital of the Xinguang Empire and bought a bunch of herbs. A few days later, a giant black eagle with a wingspan of more than 20 meters soared into the sky from the Yuntai Inn with Zhou Donghuang and Suimo on its back. Very quickly, they left the capital of the Xinguang Empire and headed southeast. In the blink of an eye, another year has passed. After leaving the southeastern border of the capital of the Xinguang Empire and entering the desolate mountains and lofty ridges, Zhou Donghuang looked in the direction of the 16 countries of the East Valley. His gaze became somewhat dazed and a look of nostalgia appeared on his face. He remembered very clearly. A year ago the day he had left Qingshan town was the 8th of January 1230 of the Ziyun era. And now it was the 12th of March 1231 of the Ziyun era. With Big Gold's current speed, we can return to Qingshan town in less than a month. Zhou Donghuang thought to himself. Of course, on the way back, Zhou Donghuang did not stay idle. He set up an energy-gathering formation on the golden-crowned eagle's back to assist him and Su Mo in their practice. Chapter 177. The 16 Countries of the East Valley. The country of Yunyang. Are you sure you know him? In the Yang family household in the Chu royal city of the western Chu Ridge, a middle-aged man dressed in a black robe sat at the head of the hall, looking at another middle-aged man standing respectfully below him. In the hands of the middle-aged man in the black robe was a portrait of a young man. Sir, not to mention the fact that the childishness on his face has faded and he looks much more mature. Even if he were to turn to ash, I would still recognize him. The middle-aged man said with absolute certainty. His name is Zhou Donghuang, and he is from the inferior Yunfeng prefecture of the western Chu Ridge. This is no secret in the Chu royal city. Sir, if you do not believe me, you can go ask elsewhere. The middle-aged man was none other than the patriarch of the Grand Yang family, Yang Yunji. Today, a huge figure suddenly descended from the sky and landed in the Yang family household. Yang Yunji was so shocked that he hurriedly led a group of Yang family elders over to take a look. What he saw almost scared him half to death. A giant eagle with a wingspan of over 20 meters appeared in the spacious front courtyard of the Yang family's mansion. As the head of the Yang family, coupled with the fact that he had lived for a long time, Yang Yunji had a certain level of understanding towards demon beasts. A giant eagle with a wingspan of more than 20 meters, even if it was a Khanate stage demon, it was definitely not an ordinary Khanate stage demon. Because, as far as he knew, an ordinary Khanate stage demon with a wingspan of only slightly more than 10 meters. But this giant eagle with a wingspan of more than 20 meters. What shocked him the most was the black-robed middle-aged man who had descended from the eagle's back. The black-robed middle-aged man was surrounded by a milky white halo, and he flew directly in front of him, looking down at him. Primal Core Adept. Even the most powerful Khanate stage adept could not fly in the air. Only the legendary Primal Core Adepts who could escape gravity and travel the universe with their bodies, could fly in the air. So, at that moment he knew that the other party was a Primal Core Adept. Although he did not know what the other party was here for, Yang Yunji still welcomed him into the Yang family's living room immediately. At the same time, he dismissed his attendants, leaving him alone to serve the other party. He did this for two reasons. Firstly, he was worried that others would inadvertently offend him, and secondly, he was worried that this Primal Core Adept had some instructions that would allow others to get ahead of him. A Primal Core Adept only had to say the word, and the Yang family would change hands, and he would not even dare to complain. To be on the safe side, he dismissed everyone. What Yang Yunji did not expect was that the Primal Core Adept in front of him was actually here for Zhou Donghuang. In that case, come with me. The middle-aged man in black was none other than the 10th elder from the Divine Light sect, Lin Hantian. After searching the 16 countries of the East Valley for a period of time, he had come to the western ridge of the Chu King in the country of Yunyang. Then he landed directly in the Chu royal city in the center of the western ridge of the Chu King, and coincidentally landed in the Yang family mansion, where he met the patriarch of the Yang family, Yang Yunji. I am willing to serve my lord. Yang Yunji replied respectfully. Almost as soon as Yang Yunji responded, Lin Hantian's figure flickered, and he was already in front of Yang Yunji like a bolt of lightning. With one hand he grabbed Yang Yunji's arm and flew him out of the living room. After Lin Hantian had flown Yang Yunji out of the living room, he continued to soar into the air, looking down at the Chu royal city below him. All the buildings in the Chu royal city were clearly visible. Who else knows that young man? I will bring you to confirm it. Lin Hantian said calmly. My lord, that mansion in the center of the Chu royal city is the Chu royal household, which controls the western ridge of the Chu King. I, a mere patriarch of the Yang family, have no power to bribe someone from the Chu royal household. Yang Yunji boldly opened his eyes, and the first thing he did was to point to the Chu royal household. He said to Lin Hantian, if I cannot prove that what I said is true in the Chu royal household, my lord, you can kill me directly. If I find out that you are lying, of course you will not live. As Lin Hantian spoke again, his figure flickered, and in the blink of an eye, he had brought Yang Yunji to the sky above the Chu royal household. He then casually dropped Yang Yunji on top of a building in the Chu royal household. Wait for me here. Yes, my lord. Yang Yunji replied respectfully. In the blink of an eye, Lin Hantian descended into the air and hid behind some buildings, disappearing before Yang Yunji's eyes. At this time, Yang Yunji finally had time to catch his breath, and at the same time, he was frightened. This Primal Core Adept, who is he? He has obviously come with ill intentions. That Zhou Donghuang has offended him. Thinking of this, Yang Yunji could not help but laugh. To even dare to offend an extremely powerful primal core adept. That Zhou Donghuang must be tired of living. Not long after, Lin Hantian returned. "My lord, how was it?" Yang Yunji asked. "You should know where the inferior prefecture, Yunfeng Prefecture, is located?" Lin Hantian asked calmly. I know. Yang Yunji nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. "If my lord wishes to go, I can personally lead the way." Lin Hantian nodded. "Come with me and I will not mistreat you after this." "Thank you, my lord." Yang Yunji's eyes lit up and at the same time he hurriedly bowed in thanks. A reward from a primal core adept was definitely a great reward for a chi-gathering adept like him. Just thinking about it made him so excited that he could not sleep for a few days. Whoosh! Departing from the southeastern border of the Xinguang Empire, it only took half a month for the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold, to bring Zhou Donghuang and his servant back to the vast valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located. On March 20, 1231 of the Ziyun era, Zhou Donghuang and Su Mo returned to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Valley Head. As the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold, flew into the valley, one of the elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, who was on duty at the nearest lookout post, approached on his flying beast and recognized Su Mo from afar. Of course, the chi-gathering flying beast beneath him did not dare to approach Big Gold at all. In the past, flying demonic beasts at the chi-gathering stage would still dare to approach Big Gold. But now that Big Gold's cultivation had reached the ultimate Xiantian stage, flying demonic beasts at the chi-gathering stage would stop at a distance. "We've arrived?" At the same time, Su Mo was also startled by the sudden voice. "Valley Head, I'll go inform Head Elder." The elder on duty at the lookout post, after bidding farewell to Su Mo, left on his flying beast and flew off into the distance. However, it was not long before he returned. On the back of his flying beast, there was an additional person. It was the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Yu Meiqin. "Valley Head, you finally returned." Yu Meiqin looked at Su Mo and smiled bitterly. "What? Could it be that, while I was away, something happened in the valley?" Su Mo frowned slightly, and with a shake of his body, he stepped out into the air. Under the shocked gazes of Yu Meiqin and the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters beside him, he walked step by step through the air towards them. "Valley Head, you've really entered the primal core stage?" The elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters stared in shock. He still remembered that some time ago, a primal adept had descended upon the Valley of the Medicine Masters riding on a primal core beast, and had boasted that the Valley Head of the Medicine Masters was a primal adept. At that time he had still been somewhat puzzled. When had the Valley Head of the Medicine Masters become a primal adept? Today he finally understood that the primal adept of the past had not been speaking nonsense. A year after leaving the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the Valley Head of the Medicine Masters had entered the primal core stage and become a primal core adept who could fly in the air. Primal core adept. Yu Meiqin's eyes also narrowed at this moment, and her face went blank for a long time before she regained her composure. The Valley of the Medicine Masters also had a primal adept? In the history of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, a primal adept had finally appeared? From what you say, you already knew that I had entered the primal core stage? Su Mo frowned as he looked at the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Valley Head. Faced with Su Mo's question, the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters hurriedly recounted what had happened, without hiding anything, and how they had fooled the primal adept. "You actually fooled him?" Hearing that the people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had fooled a primal adept, Su Mo could not help but be speechless, but at the same time he was relieved. That person had obviously not come with good intentions. If he had confirmed that he was the Valley Head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, who knew what he would do to the people of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Just as Su Mo guessed that the person who had brought him and his master's portrait to the Valley of the Medicine Masters to investigate them was from the Divine Light sect, and was about to inform Zhou Donghuang. Yu Meiqin spoke first. "Valley Head, there's one more thing. Not long after you left, 2 people came, claiming to be from Yunyang Country, one of the 16 countries of the East Valley. They said that they were looking for you, Valley Head. Later on, when they learned that you had left, they told me why they were looking for you. They said, they wanted to tell you that in the western ridge of the Chu King in Yunyang Country, there was a youth named Zhou Donghuang, who had obtained a treasure left behind by a primal core adept, and that you could snatch it from him." At this point, Yu Meiqin glanced at the young man in white sitting cross-legged on the back of the huge eagle behind Su Mo. She remembered clearly that the master of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Su Amo, was named Zhou Donghuang. Someone would come to me with such a message? Su Mo's eyes narrowed and a cold light flashed. It seems that they must be the master's enemies. Where are they now? Su Amo asked. I also guessed that they were young Master Donghuang's enemies. So, I ordered them to be locked up until Valley Head and young Master Donghuang return. Yu Meiqin said. I will inform the master and then you can bring us there. I want to see who would dare to harm the master. As Su Amo spoke, his eyes flashed with a frightening cold light. Feeling the respect that Su Amo had for the young man in white on the eagle's back, Yu Meiqin's heart trembled. It seems that Valley Head being able to become a primal core adept in a short year has something to do with Zhou Donghuang. End of this chapter. Chapter 178. In the Valley of the Medicine Masters, there was a special prison cell. Usually the elders and disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who made mistakes would be locked up in a cell to reflect on their mistakes, and would only be released after a certain period of time. And now, in one cell, there were two people who were not from the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Sure you, it will be a year soon. How long do you think the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters will take to return? Lu Yuanshan, the patriarch of the Lu family, one of the top tycoon families in the Chu royal city of the western ridge of the Chu king in the country of Yunyang, was no longer as handsome as he had been a year ago. He sat on one side of the cell, his hair disheveled like a beggar. For nearly a year he had to eat, drink and defecate in a cell. He couldn't even bathe. No matter how glamorous a person was, he would become the sloppy person he used to hate the most. On the other side of the cell sat another young man with disheveled hair. He was the first young master of the Tycoon Shi family of the Chu royal city, Shiyu, who had traveled thousands of miles from the Chu royal city to the Valley of the Medicine Masters with Lu Yuanshan. More than a year ago, Shiyu went to find Lu Yuanshan, borrowed a flying beast from him, and then rode the flying beast with Lu Yuanshan to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Their original intention was to inform the head of the Valley of Medicine Masters that someone in the country of Yunyang had obtained a treasure left behind by a primal core adept. Shiyu wanted the Medicine King Valley to act and kill the youth that he hated to the bone. Lu Yuanshan hoped that after the Valley of the Medicine Masters obtained the primal core adept's legacy from the youth, they would reward the Lu family with something. However, what they didn't expect was, when they arrived at the Valley of the Medicine Masters, they learned from the head elder that the valley head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had gone on a long journey. When they had told the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters why they had come, and asked her to pass on the message to the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, they had not expected that the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters would order them to be imprisoned here. This imprisonment lasted for nearly a year. When they were imprisoned, the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had told them that when the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters returned, he would release them. I don't know. Shiyu sighed. If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have come with you. Lu Yuanshan said regretfully. There's no point in saying anything now. We'd better just wait here for the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters to return. When he returns we'll be free. Shiyu's eyes lit up. Furthermore, if he can successfully obtain the Primal Core Adept's treasure from Zhou Donghuang, he will definitely reward us handsomely. Now, my greatest wish is to leave this godforsaken place and return to Yunyang country, to the Lu family. I don't care if the head of the Valley of Medicine Masters rewards me with anything. Lu Yuanshan said. Almost as soon as LV Yuanshan finished speaking, the cell door was opened and a voice was heard. You two, our Valley Master is back. Now, I'll take you to freshen up and change your clothes before we meet our Valley Master. The head of the Valley of Medicine Masters is back. Whether it was Lu Yuanshan or Shiyu, both stood up at the same time and left the cell at lightning speed. They had been waiting for this day. The two of them were taken to freshen up by the disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters and changed into clean robes. They were in high spirits and no longer looked like unkempt beggars. Nephew Shiyu, what do you think the head of the Valley of Medicine Masters will reward us if we obtain the legacy of the Primal Core Adept? First-grade techniques? Could it be a first-grade swiftness technique? Lu Yuanshan could not help but ask Shiyu as he was led by the disciples to the residence of the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Chief Lu, didn't you say that you didn't care about the reward from the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, as long as we can leave that godforsaken place? Why are you changing your mind now? Shiyu asked mockingly. That was then and this is now. If the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters generously rewards us, I wouldn't be able to reject him, would I? Lu Yuanshan smiled awkwardly. At the same time, Lu Yuanshan could not help but frown. But there's one thing that I still don't understand. Even if the Valley of the Medicine Masters wants us to stay and let us personally tell the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, there's no need to lock us up in that kind of cell, right? It doesn't feel like they're treating us like guests, more like criminals. At the mention of this, Lu Yuanshan had nowhere to vent his anger. Maybe they're worried that we're lying to them, so they're afraid that we'll run away before their head returns, so they locked us up in the cell. Sure, you guessed. Otherwise, why wouldn't they just kill us directly but lock us up instead? If they really wanted to harm us, even if they wanted to kill us, we wouldn't be able to retaliate. Lu Yuanshan nodded in agreement at Shiryu's words. Then I'll congratulate you in advance, nephew Shiryu, for avenging your father's death. Lu Yuanshan smiled at Shiryu and said, that valley head of the Valley of Medicine Masters, once he obtains the treasure left behind by the primal core adept that Zhou Donghuang obtained, he will definitely not let Zhou Donghuang live. Thank you, Chief Lu. Shiryu smiled lightly, but his eyes were filled with excitement. As the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Suemo lived in a secluded corner of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Here there was only an elegant courtyard. Other than the courtyard filled with all kinds of flowers and plants, as well as some colorful, unique objects of different shapes and sizes, the courtyard was also green and lush. Now, in the only room in the courtyard, Suemo was telling the young man sitting cross-legged on the bed what had happened in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. 2 people from the Chu Royal City? Looking for you to tell them that I've obtained the legacy of the Primal Core Adept? Zhou Donghuang's mouth turned up in a mocking smile, and his eyes flashed coldly. How persistent. Looks like there are still people who haven't given up. In the Chu Royal City there were many people who had enmity with him and he could not guess who it was. Does Master know who it is? Suemo asked. I don't know. Zhou Donghuang shook his head, and the mocking smile on his face deepened. But didn't you send someone to bring them here? When they come, I should be able to recognize who they are. You just said there were 2 things? What else? Zhou Donghuang asked. The other thing is, some time ago, a mid-primal core adept came to the Valley of the Medicine Masters riding on a primal core demon. Sumo's expression was solemn as he said, he killed an elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters. His purpose in coming to the Valley of the Medicine Masters was to find someone. In his hands, there were 2 portraits of me and you, Master. Originally, one of the elders of the Valley of the Medicine Masters had already exposed me. But because he mentioned that I was a primal core adept, a few of the elders were quick-witted enough to say that they had mistaken me for someone else. And that person, in the end, was tricked by a few of the elders and disciples of the Valley of the Medicine Masters into leaving, thinking that the person in the portrait only looked like me, and was not the same person. After all, he could not possibly believe that a late Khanate adept could become a primal core adept in the short span of a year. Suemo finished in one breath. A mid-primal core adept? A primal core demon? He has portraits of you and me? After hearing Sumo's words, Zhou Donghuang's eyes narrowed, and a cold light flashed across them. Looks like it's someone from the Valley of the Medicine Masters. The Valley of the Medicine Masters wants to investigate our background. But, although he was tricked into leaving, he might still go to the 16 countries of the East Valley to continue his investigation. If he goes to the Chu Royal City of the country of Yunyang, my identity will definitely be exposed. At this point, Zhou Donghuang suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze was like a torch as if it could burn everything. I have to go back. Although Zhou Donghuang was not worried that the person from the Divine Light sect would dare to do anything to his family after finding out his background, he was still anxious to return. After all, only by seeing his family safe and sound could he be at ease. Of course, as long as the primal core adept from the Divine Light sect was not an idiot, he would not make a move on his family before confirming that Zhou Donghuang did not have a powerful background. Master, those 2 people should be here soon. Let's wait for them to arrive, then I will accompany you back. Suemo suggested. After dealing with the 2 of them, I'll go back by myself. You stay in the Valley of the Medicine Masters and help me arrange a quiet place to stay. When I return, there should be many people coming back with me. Zhou Donghuang said to Suemo. When he had first left the country of Yunyang, the reason why he had not insisted on bringing his mother and the rest to the Valley of the Medicine Masters was because his abilities were limited at that time, and he was worried that Suemo, the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, would do something behind his back. Now that he had sufficient abilities, and Suemo had gained his absolute trust, it was time to bring them all over. As for his mother's previous words about liking the living environment in Qingshan town, It was nothing more than an excuse to not be a burden to him. Water flowed downwards and people sought to climb higher. If the conditions were right, how many people would not want to climb higher? Yes, master. Suemo responded respectfully to the young man's instructions. At this moment, a loud and clear voice came from outside the door. Valley Master, I've brought the person you wanted to see. Master, I will go take a look first. Suemo bade farewell to the young man and pushed the door open, closing it behind him. Valley Head. In the courtyard, after Suemo came out, both Shiryu and Lu Yuanshan bowed respectfully to Suemo, not even daring to breathe too loudly. I heard that you were looking for me? Suemo asked bluntly as he glanced at the two of them. Valley Head. Shiryu stepped forward and said respectfully, we came all the way from the western ridge of the Chu King in the country of Yunyang to the Valley of the Medicine Masters to tell you that within the western ridge of the Chu King, someone has obtained an opportunity left behind by a primal core adept. That person is called Zhou Donghuang? Someone from the inferior prefecture of Yunfeng Prefecture? Suemo asked. Looks like head elder has already told you everything. Shiryu smiled. End of this chapter. Chapter 179. Valley Head, if you help, the primal core adept's treasure that Zhou Donghuang obtained will definitely be yours. Lu Yuanshan also smiled at Suemo, that Zhou Donghuang, a country bumpkin, was able to use the treasure left behind by the primal core adept to attain the Khanate stage before the age of 20. If you were to obtain the treasure left behind by the primal core adept, you would have a chance of attaining the primal core stage and becoming a primal core adept. In the history of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, there had never been a primal core adept, but Lu Yuanshan had heard of it. That's right. Shiryu smiled in agreement. Valley Head, that country bumpkin Zhou Donghuang does not deserve the treasure left behind by the primal core adept? Only you, the high and mighty head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the leader of the 16 countries of the East Valley, deserve the treasure left behind by the primal core adept. As he said this, Shiryu flattered Suemo again, but Suemo was so frightened that he broke out in a cold sweat. What did he mean by his master did not deserve it and only he did? Just as Sumo's expression darkened and he was about to explode. Creak, the door behind Suemo opened, and a figure dressed in snow white walked out slowly. I was wondering who it was that wanted me to be unlucky. So it's you, Shiryu. Zhou Donghuang looked at Shiryu, his eyes calm and his face relaxed. Zhou Donghuang. Shiryu stared seriously at the youth in white before him for a moment before confirming that the person before him was Zhou Donghuang. But after not seeing him for a long time, he had lost his childishness and had completely transformed from a youth to a young man. Zhou Donghuang? Hearing Shiryu's exclamation, Lu Yuanshan was stunned at first, then his expression changed and his heart filled with fear. The Zhou Donghuang, why is he here? And he came out of the Valley Head's room? At this moment, LV Yuanshan had an ominous premonition in his heart. Lu Yuanshan had never seen Zhou Donghuang, but that did not affect his understanding of Zhou Donghuang's characteristics. He wore snow-white clothes all year round, had handsome features and had an extraordinary aura. The youth in white before him met all these requirements. Coupled with Shiryu's exclamation, he was basically 100% sure that the young man in white before him was Zhou Donghuang, the one who had obtained the treasure left behind by the primal core adept in the western ridge of the Chu King in Yunyang country. Zhou Donghuang, why are you here? Now Shiryu also vaguely realized that something was wrong, and his face instantly turned pale. Judging from the current situation, this Zhou Donghuang did not look like someone who had been held hostage by Suemo of the Valley of Medicine Masters. Master, how do you want to deal with these two? Just as Shiryu and Lu Yuanshan were trembling in fear, their faces pale and their eyes filled with fear, Suemo bowed and asked. When Sumo's words were transmitted into the Shiryu duo's ears, their expressions drastically changed. Terror and despair appeared in their eyes. A master. The head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the leader of the 16 countries of the East Valley, actually called Zhou Donghuang master? At this moment they thought they were dreaming. Shiryu stretched out his hand to pinch his face at the first possible moment, whereas Lu Yuanshan stretched out his hand to pinch his thigh instead. The intense pain caused them to realize an extremely shocking problem. They were not dreaming. Everything that was happening before them was real. No, impossible. This is impossible. Shiryu cried out in panic, his eyes filled with despair as he took a step back, shaking his head incessantly as if he had lost his mind. He simply could not accept the reality before him. Thump. As Shiryu lost his composure, Lu Yuanshan was already kneeling on the ground, kowtowing to Zhou Donghuang. Young Master Donghuang, I am Lu Yuanshan, chief of the Lu family of the Chu royal city. You and I have no enmity, I have no intention of harming you. I really have no intention of harming you. With your status you will not hold it against me, you will definitely not hold it against me. Right? Lu Yuanshan was scared out of his wits. The young Khanate sage whose name shook the Chu royal city had actually become the master of the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, who ruled the 16 countries of the East Valley. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, even if he was beaten to death, he would not have believed it to be true. At this time, hearing Lu Yuanshan beg for mercy in front of Zhou Donghuang, Shiryu shuddered and completely recovered from his crazed state, and with a thud, he knelt before Zhou Donghuang. Moreover, Shiryu kowtowed even harder than Lu Yuanshan. Young Master Donghuang, I was wrong. I was wrong. You have a high status and I am no different from an ant in your eyes. You are a man of great stature, so just treat me as a fart and let me go. I, Shiryu, promise that I will never make an enemy of young Master Donghuang again. I promise. I promise. In the face of death, Shiryu's mind was only filled with the thought of survival. Whoosh. Glancing at the two of them, Zhou Donghuang's figure flickered, and he rose into the air, flying off into the distance, leaving only these words. You deal with it as you see fit. Yes, master. Su Mo replied respectfully. Whether it was Shiryu or Lu Yuanshan, they were both dumbfounded when Zhou Donghuang rose into the air. Primal Core Adept. Flying through the air was the legendary symbol of a Primal Core Adept. At this moment, they realized that the young Khanate stage adept had already surpassed the Khanate stage and entered the Primal Core stage, becoming the legendary Primal Core Adept. No wonder even the head of the Valley of Medicine Masters acknowledged him as his master. Both of them had the same thought at the same time. How dare you harm my master, you are seeking your own death. Suemo rose into the air and looked down at Shiryu and Lu Yuanshan, then raised his hand and pressed it down. Instantly, a pale white light gathered to form a palm, descending from the sky. Bang! With a loud crash, Shiryu and Lu Yuanshan did not even have a chance to react before they were crushed into a pool of blood by the huge palm descending from the sky. The ground where they had been kneeling had become a huge pit of blood, the huge pit in the shape of a palm, and it looked exceptionally glaring. Whoosh! Whoosh! With a wave of Sumo's hand, the soil and rocks that had been splattered were immediately wrapped in a pale white light and brought back into the pit, filling it up. In the blink of an eye, everything had returned to normal as if nothing had happened. At the same time, Suemo seemed to sense something, and he suddenly looked up into the sky. Whoosh! On the horizon, a huge golden-crowned black eagle was flying out of the Valley of Medicine Masters, in the direction of Yinyang Country, one of the 16 countries of the East Valley. And on the back of the giant eagle, a young man dressed in clothes whiter than snow stood with his hands behind his back, like a deity. Yinyang Country. Western ridge of the Chu King Yunfeng Prefecture. Tell me, what exactly did your son Zhou Donghuang encounter that allowed him to achieve what he has today? In Qingshan Town, in the courtyard behind Yunshan Restaurant, in the messy front yard, a black-robed man stood in the air, looking down at the only girl standing in the front yard. This girl was none other than Lin Lan. Who are you? Lin Lan looked at the black-robed man standing in the air with a serious expression, her eyes full of fear. She knew that standing in the air was the mark of a legendary Primal Core Adept. Today this Primal Core Adept had suddenly flown into the house on a giant eagle, not only destroying most of the buildings in the house, but also injuring everyone including her. If not for the fact that the Primal Core Adept had intentionally held back, she would not be standing now. Now, besides Lin Lan, everyone else such as Yun Lu, Yang Zishi, Fu, Freezing Wind, Granny Lien and the others were all bleeding from the corners of their mouths, either sitting or lying on the ground, no longer having the strength to stand. The golden-crowned eagle, Xiao Jin, lay in the distance, barely breathing. At this moment, Yun Lu and the others looked at the black-robed man, their eyes full of fear and fear. The person before them had only casually waved his hand, and they had all been injured to this extent. If not for Xiao Jin, who had recently attained the Khanate stage, taking the lead and blocking most of the black-robed man's attack, they would have been crippled if not dead. Flying in the air, he is a Primal Core Adept. Yun Lu murmured bitterly. Smack. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the black-robed man casually lifted his hand, and a white light flashed, causing Lin Lan's head to tilt to the side. At the same time, a bright red palm print was left on Lin Lan's face. Now, I am the one asking questions, not the other way around. The black-robed man looked coldly at Lin Lan and said in a low voice. My lord. At this time, the middle-aged man standing behind the black-robed middle-aged man on the back of the giant eagle that was shrouded in faint white mist grinned and said, "You threatened her that if she didn't cooperate, you would kill one person here. She definitely wouldn't dare to not cooperate." Yang Yuanji. Yang Zishi looked up at the middle-aged man on the eagle's back, her eyes cold as she said in a low voice, "Back then I should have let Brother Zhou kill you to avenge third uncle. Yang Zishi, you are destined to be unlucky for the rest of your life after following that unlucky bastard. Perhaps you will die today." Yang Yunji looked disdainfully at Yang Zishi and smiled brightly, looking like a scoundrel who had achieved his goal. Not a bad idea. The black-robed man smiled faintly, then reached out and grabbed at the air. Suddenly, a giant hand completely condensed from true essence appeared beside Yun Lu and grabbed her. In the blink of an eye, it carried her dozens of meters into the sky. Xiaolu. Lin Lan's expression changed and so did Yang Zishi, Fu, Freezing Wind and the rest. Their eyes were filled with anger. But no matter how angry they were, they could do nothing but watch as Yun Lu was taken into the air. If the man let go, Yun Lu would definitely die from falling from such a high place. The answer was no. Being taken into the air, Yun Lu's eyes were filled with panic, but her face was unusually stubborn. She said to Lin Lan, "Mother, ignore him, Xiaolu is not afraid." Not afraid? The black-robed man grinned, and the giant hand that was grabbing Yun Lu slowly opened. Oh. Seeing this, Lin Lan's expression changed. I'll speak. I'll speak. End of this chapter. Chapter 180. Speak. The middle-aged man in the black robe was the 10th elder of the Divine Light sect, Lin Hantian. He had brought the head of the Yang family, Yang Yunji, to Yunfeng Prefecture from the Chu royal city. After arriving at Qingshan town, he had further investigated the background of the young man he was looking for. It turned out that the young man was just as Yang Yunji had said, a country bumpkin. Furthermore, through his inquiries in Qingshan town, it was not difficult to find out that the other party had been a martial invalid at the age of 16. In a short span of 4 years, a martial invalid who did not know what kind of miraculous encounter he had encountered, had actually managed to advance to the primal core stage and become a primal core adept. It had only taken him 4 years to enter the primal core stage from the very beginning of the martial way. Such an achievement was unprecedented in the history of the planet of Ziyun, and even in the history of those large planets that were rich in resources for practice, it was also unprecedented. Would a mighty adept descend to such a remote rural place in the planet of Ziyun to find such a successor? Lin Hantian asked himself. He felt that the possibility of this happening was very, very small, close to zero. If he was a mighty adept looking for a successor, and had unexpectedly descended upon the planet of Ziyun, he would surely have chosen a ready-made genius disciple from the 5 main sects, and would never have come to such a barren place to find a martial invalid. As such, Lin Hantian felt. The young man named Zhou Donghuang was more likely to have obtained a miraculous encounter left behind by a mighty adept on the planet of Ziyun. However, to be able to allow a martial invalid to step into the primal core stage and become a primal core adept in the short span of 4 years. Such a fortuitous encounter, just what level of cultivation could it have been that had been left behind? Dharma? Primordial soul? Or perhaps, divine transformation? At least, Lin Hantian felt that even if it was a legacy left behind by a Dharma adept, it would be impossible for a martial invalid to achieve such a feat in a short span of 4 years. Their Divine Light sect had once produced a Dharma adept, and he knew a little about the methods of a Dharma adept. Thus, there was only one possibility, that Zhou Donghuang had obtained a miraculous encounter left behind by a mighty adept of the primordial soul stage and above on the planet of Ziyun. Even he would be envious of such a fortuitous encounter. First, there was the cost-saving formula for the Qi-gathering elixir that increased the sensitivity to Qi by 10 times, and then there was the formula for the Qi-gathering elixir that increased the sensitivity to Qi by 20 times. Alchemist Su of the Divine Light sect, who is widely recognized as the best alchemist on the planet of Ziyun, said that even on his home planet with primordial soul adepts, there had never been such a brilliant Qi-gathering elixir formula. Clearly, this elixir formula was also left behind by that mighty martial artist. That mighty martial artist was most likely an existence that surpassed the primordial soul stage. Even if he was only a primordial soul adept, he must have come from a large planet rich in resources. The more Lin Hantian thought about it, the hotter he looked at Lin Lan. Now Lin Lan was the only one left to explain everything to him. As long as he could confirm that his guess was correct, he could use the group of people in front of him to threaten Zhou Donghuang, force him to hand over the fated opportunity, and then take it for himself. As long as he eliminated the source of the trouble afterward, even the Divine Light sect would not be able to find out. As long as he was given enough time, with the fated opportunity left behind by that mighty martial artist who was above the primordial soul stage, he would definitely be able to enter the Dharma stage and become the best martial artist on the planet of Ziyun. My son only told me that everything he has now was given to him by his sweetheart. His sweetheart is a primal core adept. Under Lin Hantian's gaze, Lin Lan said in a low voice. Sweetheart? Primal core adept. Lin Hantian frowned. What did that mean? Did Lin Lan mean that Zhou Donghuang was a man who lived off a woman, and the reason why he was where he was today was because he had found a primal core adept as his partner? Big brother Zhou's sweetheart? Hearing Lin Lan's words, Yang Zishi temporarily withdrew her anxious gaze from Yun Lu, and subconsciously looked at Lin Lan, her face slightly pale. And a primal core adept? Although this was the first time Yang Zishi had heard Lin Lan say this, it was also because of this that she felt that it was very credible. Furthermore, she was very clear about the importance of Yun Lu in Lin Lan's heart, and she did not think that Lin Lan would lie to the primal core adept before her at this time. Because of this, she felt a stabbing pain in her heart. So, Big Brother Zhou had a sweetheart? And it was a primal core adept? At this time, Yang Yunji, who was standing on the back of the giant eagle, snorted coldly and said disdainfully, Ridiculous! How could a primal core adept like your son, who is a martial invalid? Furthermore, even if the high and mighty martial adept took a liking to your martial invalid son, after toying with him for a while, he would definitely abandon him. How could he possibly give him that kind of good fortune? I really didn't expect that at this time you Lin Lan would still dare to lie. Yang Yunji laughed coldly. Yang Yunji's words suddenly made Lin Hantian understand, because everything that Yang Yunji had said did indeed make sense. Especially since he himself was a primal core adept. In the eyes of a primal core adept, even a Khanate stage adept or even a Qi-gathering adept were insignificant, let alone an ordinary person. Just like Lin Hantian, if he really took a fancy to a young girl who was a martial invalid, he would certainly play with her for a while and then abandon her. It was simply impossible to spend time and effort to groom her. That was not only troublesome but also unnecessary. As for being tempted? A primal core adept was very experienced. How could he be tempted by one person? Furthermore, that person was a martial invalid. The possibility of this was so small that it was almost non-existent. You dare to lie to me, Lin Hantian? Lin Hantian looked at Lin Lan again, his gaze extremely cold, his face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost, and his cold voice revealed his anger. I did not lie to you. Lin Lan hurriedly shook her head and said, all of this was told to me by my own son. However, Lin Hantian clearly did not believe Lin Lan's words. Since you are so stubborn, then I will first make an example out of this little girl. I only hope that after she dies, you will be able to protect the others. As soon as Lin Hantian's cold voice fell, the giant inner yuan hand that had grabbed Yun Lu high in the sky suddenly collapsed, and then Yun Lu lost her support and fell from a height of tens of meters. As Yun Lu fell from the sky, a look of panic flashed in her eyes, and then a smile bloomed on her delicate little face. As she fell, she shouted, Mother! If there is a next life, I want to be your biological daughter, I want to be Big Brother's biological sister. As Yun Lu's voice fell, the speed of her fall increased, and she was only 10 meters from the ground. Xiaolu. Lin Lan subconsciously moved, trying to catch Yun Lu, but she was sent flying by Lin Hantian's hand. She fell awkwardly in the distance, and could only watch helplessly as Yun Lu fell from the sky. In the face of death, Yun Lu's face maintained a bright smile as she looked at Lin Lan from afar. Seeing this, Lin Lan naturally felt even more distressed. Xiaolu, no. No. Who is it? Just as Lin Lan, Yang Zishi, and the others were in despair, Lin Hantian's gloomy voice suddenly rang out. At the same time, they saw a huge black shadow pass low in the sky, and in the nick of time, it caught Yun Lu and took her away. Seeing this, Lin Lan and the others all breathed a sigh of relief. The person who will kill you. A calm voice sounded in response to Lin Hantian. At the same time, the huge black shadow that had saved Yun Lu landed in the front yard of the dilapidated mansion, beside Lin Lan. At this time, everyone could see clearly, the person who spoke was a young man in white. The young man in white held Yun Lu by the waist in his arms, and at his feet was a huge golden-crowned black eagle, with a wingspan of more than 20 meters. In terms of size, this black eagle was no smaller than the giant eagle that was carrying Yang Yunji in the air. Big brother. Your big brother. The girl in the arms of the young man in white opened her eyes in panic, and her eyes suddenly lit up, and her delicate little face was full of excitement. Dong Huang. Big brother Zhou. Young master. At the same time Lin Lan, Yang Zishi, Fu, Freezing Wind, and the others all clearly saw the young man in white. Although the young man had lost his childishness, they still recognized him at a glance. Whoosh. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, Zhou Donghuang carried Yun Lu and flew through the air. He slowly landed beside Lin Lan and placed Yun Lu beside her. Mother Xiaolu, I have something to take care of first. Zhou Donghuang patted Yun Lu's head and smiled at Lin Lan, his eyes full of tenderness. Donghuang, be careful. Lin Lan was shocked that her adopted son had actually become a primal core adept, and at the same time she warned him, deeply afraid that he would be careless. After all, they were both primal core adepts and it was hard to say who was stronger. Big brother Zhou, he is also a primal core adept? Young master, he has become a primal core adept. When Yang Zishi, Fu, Freezing Wind, and the others looked at Zhou Donghuang again, their eyes were slightly dazed. They had never imagined that in just over a year, the young man before them had already surpassed the Khanate stage and become a primal core adept. Don't worry, mother. Zhou Donghuang nodded at Lin Lan, and then turned and rose into the air to face Lin Hantian. Someone from the Divine Light sect? That's right. Lin Hantian raised his head proudly. I am the 10th elder of the Divine Light sect, Lin Hantian. Zhou Donghuang, I didn't expect you to come back on your own. This is good, it saves me the trouble of going to the Xinguang Empire to find a way to drag you out. Lin Hantian looked at Zhou Donghuang, his eyes full of greed. This Zhou Donghuang, how did he become a primal core adept? At this time Yang Yunji finally recovered from his shock, and when he looked at Zhou Donghuang again, his eyes were full of shock and disbelief. If he remembered correctly, this Zhou Donghuang, he seemed to be only 20 years old this year? A 20-year-old primal core adept? If there was anyone present who was not surprised that Zhou Donghuang had achieved the primal core stage, it was Lin Hantian, because he had long known that Zhou Donghuang was a primal core adept. End of this chapter. Chapter 181. If it had been before he had come to Qingshan town and fully understood Zhou Donghuang's background, Lin Hantian would have been wary of Zhou Donghuang. But after coming to Qingshan town and learning about Zhou Donghuang's background, he felt that Zhou Donghuang was only a person who had been lucky enough to obtain an opportunity left behind by a mighty adept of the primordial soul stage and above. As for the murder of the 17th elder of the Divine Light sect, Lu Xuanyu, who was on duty at the black market, he felt that it was just a coincidence and could not have had anything to do with Zhou Donghuang. Lu Xuanyu was a mid-primal core adept, and although he was not as strong as he was not someone that Zhou Donghuang and the early primal core adept beside him could have killed. Is it not good to be alive? Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Zhou Donghuang glanced lazily at Lin Hantian and shook his head with a sigh. Zhou Donghuang's words shocked everyone, including Lin Hantian. After a moment, Lin Hantian was the first to recover. His eyes were filled with a cold, murderous intent, and he said in a cold voice, Zhou Donghuang, my life and death are not in your hands. Is that so? The folding fan in Zhou Donghuang's hand shook, and in the blink of an eye, it flew out as fast as lightning. Before Lin Hantian had time to recover, the 18 fan ribs that had been separated from the folding fan had turned into 18 sharp swords, suspended above Lin Hantian's head. A spirit weapon. Sensing the aura coming from the fan ribs, Lin Hantian's face froze, and then his eyes lit up, and the greed in them grew stronger. Zhou Donghuang, I didn't expect you to have a spirit weapon. This spirit weapon Lin Hantian want it? As soon as Lin Hantian's voice fell, it was as if he had turned into a gust of wind and soared into the air. As his hands rose and fell, a vast torrent of white true essence shot out from his body. It was as if he had turned into a giant beast, opening its bloody mouth and swallowing the 18 sword-like fan ribs that were suspended in the air. This Zhou Donghuang, a mere early primal core adept, dares to be so presumptuous in front of a mid-primal core adept. He has a death wish. Now Yang Yunji had recovered from the shock of Zhou Donghuang stepping into the primal core stage, and seeing Zhou Donghuang take the initiative to attack Lin Hantian, his face was full of sarcasm. Seeing that Lin Hantian was trying to forcibly take away his spirit weapon, Zhou Donghuang's eyes were as calm as ever, but the corners of his mouth could not help but curl up in a faint disdainful smile. Xiu, 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 xiu. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the 18 sword-like ribs of the fan began to move, as if they had turned into a rain of swords, whistling towards Yang Yunji. When the rain of swords fell and was within reach, Lin Hantian could deeply feel the terrifying true essence contained within. Although it was only the inner yuan of an early primal core adept, the power contained within it had already surpassed all the power that his inner yuan could unleash. Impossible. In that split second, Lin Hantian's first thought was that it was impossible. It must be a smokescreen. How can the inner yuan of a mere early primal core adept be compared to mine? However, when the rain of swords fell and collided with the giant beast formed from his inner yuan, he felt the taste of his power being crushed. In fact, at this moment he felt as if he was suffocating. The smell of death could be distinctly smelled. No. No. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. Between life and death, Lin Hantian's eyes widened, and he tried his best to activate the inner yuan in his body, using all the strength he could muster, in an attempt to block the rain of swords. Wah. Wah la la. However, the sky full of swords fell, and even though Lin Hantian tried his best, he was still powerless to resist. He was so anxious that his face turned red, and his eyes were so wide open that they were bleeding. No. No. Just as Lin Hantian was screaming in his heart, a milky white light rose from his body, and in that instant, a dramatic change occurred. It became silver. Ha, ha. Lin Hantian, who had been on the brink of death and despair, suddenly laughed heartily, almost maniacally. At the same time, the milky white inner yuan that had resisted the rain of swords was instantly replaced by silver inner yuan, and in one fell swoop, he had successfully blocked the further attack of the rain of swords. He actually broke through. The scene in front of him surprised Zhou Donghuang, and at the same time he realized that although Lin Hantian was previously only a middle primal core adept, he was certainly infinitely close to the late primal core stage. This time, under his pressure between life and death, Lin Hantian took advantage of this opportunity to break through and enter the late primal core stage, becoming a silver essence adept. This is a late primal core adept? Just now, Yang Yunji had thought that Lin Hantian was finished, and his eyes revealed a look of despair. If Lin Hantian was finished, he would certainly not have a good ending. After all, he had personally brought Lin Hantian to Qingshan town. Now, seeing that Lin Hantian's inner yuan had turned silver, he realized that Lin Hantian had entered the late primal core stage, and had become a late primal core adept. With the Yang family's limited resources, it was naturally impossible for Yang Yunji to understand the primal core adepts through the Yang family. The reason why he now understood the primal core adepts so well was entirely because he had brought Lin Hantian to Qingshan town, and while Lin Hantian was investigating Zhou Donghuang, he had learned about the specific stages of the primal core adepts. Because of this, he had previously known that Zhou Donghuang was an early primal core adept, and Lin Hantian was a middle primal core adept, and now he could see that Lin Hantian had entered the late primal core stage. Congratulations, big brother. At this time, the giant eagle at Yang Yunji's feet also spoke to congratulate Lin Hantian. The previous look of despair in his eyes had disappeared, replaced by bursts of excitement. However, Lin Lan and the others were not very clear about the division of the primal core adepts. Just now, Lin Hantian had almost been killed by Zhou Donghuang, and they all looked excited. Now, Lin Hantian had broken through and blocked Zhou Donghuang's attack, and the excitement on their faces had disappeared, replaced by a somber look. Zhou Donghuang. Lin Hantian, surrounded by a silver halo, looked at Zhou Donghuang and smiled sinisterly. Thanks to you, I was able to break through the middle primal core stage in one fell swoop and enter the late primal core stage, becoming a late primal core adept. So what? Zhou Donghuang's face was calm and unruffled. Even so, it only allowed you to live a little longer. Hearing Zhou Donghuang's words, Lin Hantian was stunned at first, and then his smile became even brighter. Zhou Donghuang, I have to say, your strength is indeed very strong and very strange. With a mere early primal core adept, with the help of a fairy weapon, you can actually display an attack comparable to that of a late primal core adept. But by now, can't you see? Your attack can't do anything to me. You've even taken out your spirit weapon. If I'm not wrong, this should be the strongest move you can display right now, right? That's also because I don't have enough inner yuan now. Otherwise, if this continues, your inner yuan will definitely be depleted sooner than mine. At that time, I can still easily kill you. As he said this, Lin Hantian's tone was full of regret. But, even so, my remaining inner yuan can still block your strongest move, and if I want to escape, I can easily do so. Lin Hantian's eyes were filled with unprecedented confidence. Today I escape, and the day I make a comeback will be the day you and the people around you die. Unless you take them with you and leave the planet of Ziyun? But, do you have that ability? With your current strength, how many people can you take with you and leave the planet of Ziyun? As he said this, Lin Hantian's face was full of a sarcastic smile. Now I'll leave first. When my inner Yuan recovers, I'll come back for you. As soon as Lin Hantian finished speaking, he prepared to leave. His words were full of confidence, as if he would definitely be able to leave successfully. Who said that was my strongest move? Just as Lin Hantian was about to leave, Zhou Donghuang spoke. 18 fan ribs, now you can only block 8 of them. 8 fan ribs? Looking at the rain of swords that he had blocked, Lin Hantian's face was full of disbelief. You think, by saying that, you can scare me? Frog in a well. As Zhou Donghuang shook his head, from the void beneath Lin Hantian's feet, 10 rays of light suddenly shot out. The rays of light were actually 10 clearly visible fan ribs. When 8 of the 18 fan ribs were mixed up with the rain of swords, the other 10 had already stealthily left without a sound. 10 sides 8 side sword formation, 8 sides rain, 10 sides ambush. Since it was an ambush, how could it be so easily discovered? Not good. Lin Hantian, who had used all his strength to barely block the rain of swords from the 8 fan ribs, did not have the strength to resist the attack of 10 fan ribs. In the blink of an eye, Lin Hantian's entire body was pierced through by the 10 fan ribs. Blood sprayed into the sky, dazzling. Of the 10 wounds, none of them were fatal. If Zhou Donghuang had not done it on purpose, no one would believe it. Whoosh! Just as Lin Hantian was still clenching his teeth to resist the rain of swords from all directions, Zhou Donghuang's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of him like a ghost, and then he slammed his palm into his dantian. No! Lin Hantian, who had guessed what Zhou Donghuang was trying to do, turned pale and his eyes widened in anger. Bang! Zhou Donghuang's palm smashed the defenseless silver elixir, and also destroyed Lin Hantian's elixir field, completely destroying Lin Hantian's practice. After destroying Lin Hantian's practice, Zhou Donghuang raised his hand, and the 18 fan ribs once again transformed into a folding fan that returned to his hand. At the same time, Lin Hantian, who had lost his practice and was seriously injured, fell 7 or 8 meters from the air. Bang! Lin Hantian's body hit the ground heavily, and after coughing up a few mouthfuls of blood, he looked up at the young man in white in the air, his eyes filled with despair and hatred. Chapter 182. However, after crippling Lin Hantian, Zhou Donghuang ignored him for the time being. Zhou Donghuang's gaze fell on the giant eagle and the middle-aged man on its back not far away. If I remember correctly, you are the patriarch of the Yang family, Yang Yunji? Zhou Donghuang glanced at the middle-aged man. Yang Yunji's expression changed completely when he saw Lin Hantian's level of practice crippled and severely injured. It was obvious that he was on the verge of death. Now, seeing Zhou Donghuang look over and take the initiative to greet him, his expression changed again. Yang Yunji did not respond to Zhou Donghuang. Instead, he kicked his legs and urged the giant eagle beneath him, "Run! Run! Run quickly! Do you want to die?" Just as Yang Yunji was urging the giant eagle, it finally came back to its senses. However, its eyes flashed with a look of disgust, and the white inner yuan on its back shook and sent Yang Yunji flying. Bang! Yang Yunji fell from a height of 10 meters and landed on the ground. Both his legs were broken and he screamed in pain. Whoosh! The giant eagle itself seemed to have turned into a bolt of lightning as it flew into the distance. However, although it was fast, Zhou Donghuang was even faster. In a flash, he was in front of the giant eagle. My lord, I don't think I've offended you?" The giant eagle looked at Zhou Donghuang with fear in its eyes, its huge body trembling. The human in front of it could even cripple Lin Hantian, a silver essence adept. To kill an early primal core demon like it would be a piece of cake. You want to tell me that the destruction of those buildings had nothing to do with you? Zhou Donghuang glanced at the half-destroyed mansion, and his gaze fell on the giant eagle again. The giant eagle was so frightened that it trembled and begged for mercy. "My lord, I am willing to be your slave for 10 years to repay this debt." "No need." Zhou Donghuang shook his head. Just as the giant eagle's sharp eyes lit up, Zhou Donghuang spoke again. "I am more interested in your inner core, your beak, and those sharp claws." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Donghuang struck like lightning. In the instant that the giant eagle revealed a look of despair, Zhou Donghuang had already forcefully extracted the inner core of the giant eagle from its body, then slapped it to death with a palm, and dragged its corpse back to the sky above the courtyard with one hand. Bang! After throwing the carcass of the giant eagle in the front yard, Zhou Donghuang hovered in the air and looked down at Lin Hantian. The corner of his mouth turned up in a mocking smile. The 10th elder of the Divine Light sect? Zhou Donghuang, you will die a horrible death. Lin Hantian glared at him and let out an angry roar. Then he resolutely committed suicide with his teeth clenched, and there was no sound left. Have some backbone. Zhou Donghuang raised an eyebrow and turned his gaze to Yang Yunji, whose legs had been broken. Yang Yunji, you didn't stay in the Chu royal city to be the patriarch of the Yang family, but came all the way to Qingshan town, just to make fun of me? Young Master Zhou. Yang Yunji knelt on the ground with fear in his eyes and kowtowed repeatedly. You are a high and mighty primal core adept, and I am like an ant in front of you. Please be magnanimous and forgive me this time. I promise, if you spare me this time, I will never dare to appear in front of you again in this life. Please? I beg you. Yang Yunji kept kowtowing and begging for mercy. Big brother Zhou. Before Zhou Donghuang could say anything, Yang Zishi, who had already recovered from some of his injuries, was just barely able to stand up. He looked at Zhou Donghuang and said, Can you let me deal with this Yang Yunji? Zhou Donghuang looked deeply at Yang Zishi and finally nodded. Yes, Zishi. Hearing that Zhou Donghuang had agreed to Yang Zishi's request, Yang Yunji's eyes lit up, thinking that he could be saved. But what he could not have imagined was that, what he had been waiting for was the sword that Yang Zishi had pulled out from the scabbard at Freezing Wind's waist. The sword was right in front of his throat, and all it would take was a gentle shake and he would die. Zishi. I am your uncle. Don't forget I was the one who raised you. You can't be an ingrate. You can't be an ingrate. Yang Yunji panicked. He had never imagined that his niece would treat him like this. At this point you still have the cheek to say this? Yang Zishi's gaze was cold. Ever since I found out that you caused third uncle's death, I no longer saw you as my uncle. You want to use the fact that you raised me as an adult to talk about this? My parents saved your life many years ago, it should be more than enough to compensate for the fact that you raised me, right? Zishi. Seeing that Yang Zishi was so resolute, Yang Yunji's face was as white as a sheet. I am your uncle, I am your uncle. You can't, no. The sword in Yang Zishi's hand trembled, and with a single stroke he killed Yang Yunji. Big brother Zhou. After returning the sword to Freezing Wind, Yang Zishi looked at Zhou Donghuang with a guilty expression. I'm sorry. I did not think that Yang Yunji would bring a primal core adept to cause trouble for Aunt Lan. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Yang Zishi apologized profusely, until she was on the verge of tears. This has nothing to do with you. Zhou Donghuang stepped through the air and landed in front of Yang Zishi in the blink of an eye. He reached out and stroked her head, saying gently, That primal core adept is here for me. Even if Yang Yunji did not bring him here, he could have found someone else to bring him here. The result was the same. You don't have to blame yourself. Zhou Donghuang smiled. Big brother Zhou. Yang Zishi did not know where the courage came from, but she reached out and hugged Zhou Donghuang. Her body twitched and tears streamed down her face. Zhou Donghuang's body stiffened involuntarily, and he only relaxed after a while. He gently patted Yang Zishi's back. Zishi, big brother Zhou is not trying to comfort you. This really has nothing to do with you. Zhou Donghuang smiled bitterly and helplessly. But he did not know that Yang Zishi was like this not only because Yang Yunji had brought the primal core adept to cause trouble, but more because of what Lin Lan had said before. Yang Zishi felt as if her heart was completely broken when she found out that big brother Zhou, whom she had been dreaming about, already had a sweetheart. In the past, when Zhou Donghuang had said that he only saw her as a sister, she had still felt that there was hope. But now, knowing that Zhou Donghuang had someone in his heart, her hopes were completely dashed. Yang Zishi cried for a long time and finally fell asleep from exhaustion. At this time, Zhou Donghuang looked at the woman beside Yang Zishi and said softly, Auntie Mei, help Zishi back to her room to rest. Big brother. Yang Zishi had just been taken away when Yun Lu flew into Zhou Donghuang's arms, as if she had been waiting in line. Big brother. Xiao Lu missed you so much. Silly girl. Zhou Donghuang touched the girl's head dotingly. Big brother is back now, isn't he? Don't worry. This time big brother is here to take you away. Zhou Donghuang said. Really? Yun Lu raised her head. Her big watery eyes were shining brightly, and her little face was filled with anticipation. Of course it's true. Zhou Donghuang nodded with absolute certainty. Donghuang. At this time Lin Lan spoke up. Actually, we are living quite well in Qingshan town. At the same time she glared at Yun Lu imperceptibly, causing Yun Lu's eyes to darken. She quickly tried to salvage the situation and said, "Brother, I'm just joking. Actually, I like Qingshan town very much too, really." Mother. Zhou Donghuang smiled at Lin Lan. As for the Valley of the Medicine Masters, I have already asked Suemo to arrange accommodation for you, and it should be almost ready by now. For the time being, you will stay in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Of course, you will not be able to stay in the Valley of the Medicine Masters for long, because the next step will be a better place for you to stay. At this point Zhou Donghuang paused and said, "Mother, you do not have to worry about dragging me down in the future. When you are by my side close to me I will feel more at ease. Otherwise, if I had returned a little later, the consequences would have been unthinkable." As he spoke, Zhou Donghuang's expression became serious. Hearing this, Lin Lan suddenly remembered what had happened and broke out in a cold sweat. "All right, as you wish. Leave the repairs here to the others. Prepare yourselves, I will take you away tomorrow." As Zhou Donghuang spoke, he took out an elixir bottle and distributed the elixirs in the bottle to everyone. "These are the healing elixirs that I made after I entered the primal core stage. They are many times more effective than the wound healing elixirs that I gave you previously. With the healing elixirs, everyone's injuries which had already largely healed, were quickly healed. After all, these were not serious injuries. For example, Aunt Mei, without taking the healing elixirs, had already recovered to the point where she could help Yang Zishi down to rest." "Young master?" After being fed the healing elixirs by Zhou Donghuang, Little Gold quickly regained consciousness. When it saw Zhou Donghuang, its eyes were full of disbelief. "I'm not dreaming, am I?" Little Gold muttered. "You're not dreaming." Just then Big Gold, who had been circling in the air, swooped down and flew past Little Gold. "Little Gold, you have improved quite a bit. You have actually entered the Khanate stage. You are Big Gold?" Little Gold's eyes narrowed as it looked at Big Gold's wings, which were more than 20 meters wide, and swallowed hard. You have entered the Khanate stage? Ha! Oh, you have improved quite a bit, but I have improved even more." Big Gold laughed proudly. "But this is nothing. Young master, you have already entered the primal core stage." Big Gold said again. "Primal core?" Hearing this, Little Gold looked at Zhou Donghuang in disbelief. At the same time, it remembered what had happened before it had been seriously injured. Looking around, it realized that the primal core adept and the primal core demon were both dead. Little Gold was dumbstruck and could not recover for a moment. It knew how powerful the primal core adept was. With a wave of his hand, he had effortlessly sent it flying and knocked it unconscious. And now it was dead. Chapter 183. "Young master, didn't you tell me that when Big Gold attained the Khanate stage, you would let him take my place? How long has it been since you came back?" Little Gold looked at Zhou Donghuang bitterly. "Now Little Gold is already at the ultimate Khanate stage, and I have only just attained the Khanate stage. That's enough." Zhou Donghuang interrupted Little Gold and looked at the body of the primal core demon. "I'll leave the body of this primal core demon for you, but its beak and claws must be left behind for me. Besides that, the inner core of this primal core demon is also for you to consume." As Zhou Donghuang spoke, a small white ball the size of a baby's fist appeared in his hand. It was completely formed from white mist and was faintly discernible. This was the inner core of the early primal core demon that the 10th elder of the Divine Light sect, Lin Hantian, had ridden. Although the inner core of a demon was similar to a human's primal core, after the demon died, it could be preserved for a period of time before dissipating. In this aspect it was more similar to the Buddhist essence of a Buddhist monk. However, compared to the Buddhist essence, the inner core of a demon was more straightforward. It could be consumed directly by the demon, and the inner yuan within could be digested to increase its level of practice. Inner core. As Zhou Donghuang spoke, Little Gold's eyes lit up as he stared at the inner core in Zhou Donghuang's hand, saliva dripping from the corner of his mouth. The inner core was a priceless treasure to any demon that had yet to attain the primal core stage. "Young master, if I consume this inner core, can I use the inner yuan within to attain the primal core stage and become a primal core demon?" Big Gold asked Zhou Donghuang curiously as he stared at the inner core. "Yes." Zhou Donghuang nodded. As soon as Zhou Donghuang spoke, Big Gold looked at Little Gold and smiled. "Little Gold, why don't we make a deal?" "No way. Don't even think about it. Don't even dream about it. Little Gold understood what Big Gold meant and immediately interrupted him. Give me this inner core and I will be able to catch up to you in a short period of time. If I give it to you and help you become a primal core demon, how can I catch up to you? Do you think I'm stupid? Little Gold snorted. Little Gold, I think you're really stupid. Big Gold said, if I consume this inner core and enter the primal core stage and become a primal core demon, I can bring you along to hunt other primal core demons. At that time will we lack inner cores? Big Gold's words were so persuasive that Little Gold could not help but be tempted. Without waiting for Little Gold to make a decision, Zhou Donghuang had already shot the inner core into Little Gold's mouth. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Raise your current level of practice first. Yes, young master. Little Gold smiled awkwardly. Seeing this, Big Gold did not say anything else. His cultivation had been bestowed upon him by his young master, so he would naturally listen to his young master's arrangements. Early the next morning, 2 golden-crowned eagles, one large and one small, rose into the air from the courtyard behind Yunxian Restaurant and headed for the capital city of Yunfeng Prefecture. Wait for me here. I'll go ask Lu Qinghu if he wants to leave with me. Zhou Donghuang called out to the group of people on the backs of the 2 golden-crowned eagles before leaving Big Gold's back and landing in the air towards the capital city of Yunfeng Prefecture. Standing in the air and looking down at the capital city, Zhou Donghuang quickly locked onto one of the courtyards, which was where the Lu family household was located. Arriving in the air above the Lu family household, Zhou Donghuang found that there were many people gathered in the front yard of the Lu family household. There were all sorts of food and drinks on the tables just like a buffet on earth. A gathering? The scene before him reminded Zhou Donghuang of the time when he and Yang Zishi had followed Ren Jiape to the Wei family household's gathering in the Chu royal city. However, unlike that time, the main characters were from the Wei family. Today, the main character of the Lu family gathering was Lu Qinghu's son, the first young master of the Lu family, Lu Yuan. Big brother Lu Yuan, who doesn't know that the Lu family is the true emperor of Yunfeng Prefecture and that their status is above the governor's household, the Zhao family? Don't be so humble. In the front yard of the Lu family household, a young man dressed in a luxurious robe smiled and flattered Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan seemed more mature than he had been in the past. In the face of flattery, his face was calm and gentle. You can't say such things. The governor's household, the Zhao family, is the true master of Yunfeng Prefecture. Big brother Lu Yuan, you're too humble. The other young man shook his head and smiled. Now, in the capital city of Yunfeng Prefecture, who doesn't know that half a year ago your father, Elder Qinghu, stood up for your second uncle, the current chief of the Lu family, Lu Bao? The person who came looking for trouble was a level 9 adept from a tycoon family in a superior prefecture, but wasn't he seriously injured by your father and forced to return in defeat? Your father's current level of practice is probably at least petty consummation of the Qi gathering? The young man in the luxurious robe asked. I haven't asked my father about this, so I'm not sure. Lu Yuan shook his head. As he spoke, he could not hide the pride in his eyes. At this moment, in the corner of the front yard of the Lu family household, 2 young women stood there, their eyes fixed on Lu Yuan. Li Rue, for us collateral descendants of preeminent families, if we can get close to this young master Lu, even if we're just concubines, we'll be considered phoenixes. One of the women said to the other, now the status of the Lu family in the capital city of Yunfeng Prefecture is like the sun at noon. 2 months ago, for Elder Qinghu's birthday, the governor of Yunfeng Prefecture even personally brought gifts to congratulate him. If we can get close to this young master Lu with Elder Qinghu's reputation, even the governor's household of Yunfeng Prefecture, the Zhao family, will have to give in to us. The woman said. The other woman was a collateral descendant of the preeminent Li family of Yunfeng Prefecture, Li Rue. After the death of the chief of the Li family still had a level 4 adept, so the Li family was still a preeminent family, but it had declined significantly. In contrast to the decline of the Li family, the Lu family had been like the sun at noon in the past few years. Hong Qian, do you think that the Lu family's current situation is really due to the efforts of Zhou Donghuang a few years ago? Li Rue asked Hong Qian with a look of stubbornness and disbelief. I heard that it is, otherwise how could the Lu family suddenly rise so quickly? In the past, the Lu family never showed such potential. It was only when Lu Qinghu and young master Donghuang formed a relationship that the Lu family soared to the skies. At this point, Hong Qian's eyes were burning. I heard that young master Donghuang entered the Khanate stage a year ago and became a Khanate adept. He is also the first young Khanate in the history of our country of Yunyang, and even in the history of the 16 countries of the East Valley. It's a pity that we can only look up to such a person and not be able to get close to him. The only person we can get close to is someone like young Master Lu Yuan. It's a pity that even young Master Lu Yuan is not so easy to get. As she spoke, Hong Qian sighed. Hong Qian's words made Li Rui's face darken. Zhou Donghuang. The youth that she had looked down upon had not only entered the Khanate stage, but had also risen to such heights in the Lu family because of him? Did she regret it? Of course she did. If I had not treated him that way, even if we could not get together in the end, he would not have mistreated me and my mother. I missed such a great opportunity. Li Rui's eyes were dazed and her heart was filled with regret. Just as Li Rui was filled with regret, a voice suddenly came from the sky. It was not loud, but it drowned out all the noise in the front yard. The voice sounded familiar to Li Rui. Lu Yuan. In the air above the front yard of the Lu family household, a handsome young man in a snow-white robe was floating in the air, looking down at the first young master of the Lu family, Lu Yuan. When the group of people, including Lu Yuan, heard the voice, they looked up and saw the young man in the white robe floating in the air like a god. Everyone's eyes narrowed. He's flying? He can fly. It's said that only primal core adepts have the ability to fly and stand in the air. He's a primal core adept. Primal core adepts are legendary. Why would they appear in a small place like Yunfeng Prefecture? Even in the 16 countries of the East Valley. Many people hurriedly came back to their senses and cried out in shock. When Lu Yuan heard the newcomer call out his name, he was shocked by the other party's ability to stand in the air. He carefully sized up the other party. Although it had been a long time since they last met, and the youthfulness on the other party's face had vanished, Lu Yuan still recognized him at first glance. Young Master Donghuang? After recognizing him, Lu Yuan asked in a daze, You've entered the primal core stage? Only primal core adepts could fly in the air. This was the iron rule. Zhou Donghuang nodded slightly and then said bluntly, I'm here to look for your father. I'll call him over now. Hearing Zhou Donghuang's words, Lu Yuan did not dare to hesitate. He hurriedly left the group of people around him and rushed into the Lu family household like a mad rabbit. For some time after Lu Yuan had left, the front yard of the Lu family household was still in a state of dead silence. After a while, people came to their senses and looked in shock at the young man in white in the air. They whispered to each other, He's that Zhou Donghuang? The young Khanate sage who shocked the entire country of Yunyang a year ago? Lu Yuan can't be mistaken. My God. A year ago, we only received news that he had entered the Khanate stage before the age of 20. And now, a year later, he has already entered the primal core stage? He's only 20 now, right? A 20-year-old primal core adept? In the front yard of the Lu family household, everyone was stunned. Zhou Donghuang. Li Rui stood in the corner of the front yard, looking at the young man in white who was floating in the air with his eyes closed. Her expression was complicated. Chapter 184. Zhou Donghuang. Finally, Li Rui mustered up her courage and called out to Zhou Donghuang, I'm Li Rui, do you remember me? My mother is the president of Ningping Town's Qingyun Merchant Association, Li Yun. She's good friends with your mother, Lin Lan. In Li Rui's opinion, with Zhou Donghuang's current level of practice, as long as he gave her some pointers, she would benefit immensely. Li Rui knows Zhou Donghuang? Hong Qian, who was standing beside Li Rui, was a collateral descendant of the preeminent Hong family of the Yunfeng Prefecture capital. Her eyes widened in disbelief. She had never imagined that this sister of hers would know the young Khanate adept of the country of Yunyang in the past, who was now a primal core adept. Instantly, her eyes lit up. If Li Rui could form a relationship with the other party, with her relationship with Li Rui, she might be able to use this opportunity to soar into the sky. Li Rui. Just as many people heard Li Rui's words and looked at her enviously, Zhou Donghuang, who was floating in the air, slowly opened his eyes and glanced at Li Rui. I remember you. You are Aunt Yun's daughter. Yes. Hearing that Zhou Donghuang remembered her, Li Rui's face lit up with excitement, and the others looked at Li Rui with jealousy. How is Aunt Yun? Zhou Donghuang asked. Good, my mother is very good. Li Rui nodded like a chick pecking at rice. Her face was flushed with excitement. Big brother Donghuang, it's rare for you to return to Yunfeng Prefecture. Why don't you stay for a few more days and let me take good care of you? Brother Donghuang? Hearing how Li Rui addressed him, Zhou Donghuang looked deeply at her, and a mocking smile appeared on his lips. Lady Li, I Zhou Donghuang, am not worthy of such a title. In your eyes, I Zhou Donghuang, am just a martial invalid who is not worthy of you. As soon as Zhou Donghuang said this, everyone looked at Li Rue in a completely different light. It was as if he was looking at an idiot. This Li Rue despised Zhou Donghuang? Did they think that Zhou Donghuang was a martial invalid? A 20-year-old primal core adept? A martial invalid? Was Li Rue blind? Big brother Donghuang. Although she could hear the sarcasm in Zhou Donghuang's words, Li Rue still wore a smile on her face. I was young then and did not know any better. I hope that you will forgive me for what I did and not take it to heart. You're quite flexible. Zhou Donghuang smiled lightly and retracted his gaze, continuing to close his eyes and rest. At the same time he ignored Li Rue, who had taken the initiative to speak up. This caused Hong Qian, who was beside Li Rue, to completely calm down. She could see it. Zhou Donghuang had no intention of responding to Li Rue at all. Li Rue, who had taken the initiative to speak to Zhou Donghuang a few times and had the intention of giving in, saw that Zhou Donghuang was being stubborn, and her expression gradually turned ugly. In the end, when she noticed the gazes that were filled with ridicule from the surroundings, she felt too ashamed to show her face and left dejectedly. Lu Qinghu greets the young master. Not long after Li Rue left, a tall and skinny figure appeared in the front courtyard of the Lu residence like a ghost. He bowed to the white-clothed young man who was hovering in the air. His eyes were filled with respect, but there was also a timely expression of shock. How long had it been, and the young man of the past had already entered the primal core stage and become a primal core adept. When he had heard his son Lu Yuan say this earlier, he had not dared to believe it. Only when he saw the young man floating in the air with his own eyes did he confirm that everything his son had said was true. Long time no see. Long before Lu Qinghu appeared, Zhou Donghuang had already opened his eyes. Facing Lu Qinghu's bow, he nodded and smiled slightly. I have returned this time to prepare to bring my mother and the rest out of Yunyang country. I have come to ask you, will you be leaving with us? As long as I do not burden you, I, Lu Qinghu, will go wherever you go. Lu Qinghu said without hesitation. In that case, come with me. Zhou Donghuang raised his hand and pale white inner yuan swept out and wrapped around Lu Qinghu's body. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, Zhou Donghuang took Lu Qinghu into the air and flew out of the Lu family mansion, disappearing before everyone's eyes. This former chief of the Lu family is really perceptive. He follows Zhou Donghuang, and Zhou Donghuang is a primal core adept. In the future, even the imperial court of Yunyang country will not dare to provoke the Lu family. The Lu family is really lucky. The Lu family is really lucky to have Lu Qinghu. The disciples of the preeminent and lesser families in the front yard of the Lu family mansion all shook their heads and sighed, their eyes filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. When Zhou Donghuang and the others arrived at the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Su Mo, as the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, personally came out to welcome them and bring them to the accommodations that had been arranged beforehand. This little valley was specially carved out by you? Zhou Donghuang remembered that in the vast valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located, there was no such little valley with lush green grass before him. With Sumo's current ability, he could easily carve out a valley like this with a wave of his hand and his inner yuan. However, it was easy to carve out a little valley, but a newly carved valley would definitely be unsightly. And the little valley before him was lush with lush greenery, birdsong, and fragrant flowers. It was like a paradise. To decorate the little valley like this in such a short period of time, it was obvious that a lot of effort had gone into it. Master, this little valley is a gift from me to Madam and Miss. I just don't know if Madam and Miss are satisfied. Suemo looked at Lin Lan, who was beside Zhou Donghuang, and Yun Lu, who was in Zhou Donghuang's arms, and bowed with a smile. Thank you, Valley Head. Lin Lan was somewhat flattered. After all, the elegant middle-aged man before her was the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the true master of the 16 countries of the East Valley. Madam, you can call me Suemo. Lin Lan's words frightened Suemo so much that he hurriedly knelt on the ground, his body trembling. At the same time he carefully glanced at Zhou Donghuang, who was beside Lin Lan, as if deeply afraid that Zhou Donghuang would not be satisfied with his current performance. Now in Sumo's eyes his master Zhou Donghuang was like a god, high above and inviolable. And Lin Lan was his master's mother. Valley. Suemo, what are you doing? Get up, get up. Sumo's actions caused Lin Lan's expression to change. She had never imagined that the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, who was publicly acknowledged as the master of the 16 countries of the East Valley, would be so frightened that he would directly kneel on the ground just because of the way she addressed him. Just as Lin Lan's voice fell, a voice full of disdain came from the air not far away. Suamo, you are really becoming more and more backward. You are actually kneeling to a woman. Long before the voice came, Zhou Donghuang had already noticed the newcomer. Besides the elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters who had been standing guard on the observation deck and the flying demon he was riding, there was another flying demon, and on the back of this flying demon stood two people. Now, the person who had spoken was the middle-aged man standing at the back of the two people. The middle-aged man was dressed in a luxurious robe, and he had a dignified air about him. Now, as he looked at Suamo, the corner of his mouth curled up in a mocking smile, and his eyes were full of disdain. Tanche. Just as Lin Lan finished speaking, Suamo, who had stood up, looked at the middle-aged man and said calmly, "What I, Suamo, do is not up to you, Tanche, to tell me what to do. Tanche, why aren't you staying in the Guiyuan sect? Why are you here looking for me?" Tanche was the head of the Guiyuan sect. The Guiyuan sect ruled over the lands of the 14 countries of the southern border and was adjacent to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Because it was far from the Xinguang Empire, it had not been affected by the Xinguang Empire. An ultimate Khanate stage demon? Just then, on the flying demon, the eyes of the old man in gray standing in front of Tanche suddenly lit up. His gaze immediately fell on the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold, who was standing not far from them. Deep in his eyes, a look of greed flashed. Who would have thought that there would be such a pleasant surprise this time? Congratulations, Lord Qiping. Tanche congratulated the old man. Only then did he notice the huge black eagle with the golden crown on its head. He could not help but wonder, didn't the Valley of the Medicine Masters only have one early Khanate stage demon? Where did this ultimate Khanate stage demon come from? Ichem? Just then Sumo's gaze fell on the old man in gray and he frowned slightly. You are? Suamo, this is Lord Qiping of the Shenin sect. Tanche smiled brightly. Lord Qiping left the Shenin sect this time precisely for the Valley of the Medicine Masters. But he mistakenly entered the Guiyuan sect and did not know the way to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, so I brought him here personally. Suamo, I really did not expect you to be so bold, to even dare to provoke an important person from the Shenin sect. At this point, Tanche's eyes were filled with a hint of schadenfreude. Someone from the Shenin sect? When he looked at the old man again, Sumo's expression darkened slightly. Sir, what business do you have with me? Of course, although he asked this on the surface, Suamo could faintly sense that this person had come to the Valley of the Medicine Masters to look for him because of Chen Dandan, who had been accepted as a disciple by Zhongya of the Shenin sect. I was entrusted by Miss Dandan to come to the Valley of the Medicine Masters to exterminate the entire Valley of the Medicine Masters, as well as to kill a person named Zhou Donghuang. Qiping was an early primal core disciple of the Shenin sect. Normally he liked to suck up to the Shenin sect, and even in his dreams he wanted to establish a relationship with the two ultimate primal core elders of the Shenin sect, but he had never been able to. He wanted to start with the disciples of the two elders, but the disciples of the other party did not even bother with him. Until recently he had established a relationship with the new female disciple of Zhongya of the Shenin sect, Chen Dandan. She had entrusted him with the task of exterminating the Valley of the Medicine Masters and killing a person. To him, this was an opportunity to earn a favor, so he had come directly. It would be easy for him to exterminate a small sect whose strongest member was only a late Khanate stage adept. As for the person named Zhou Donghuang who had the sword sphere, he was equally dismissive. Chapter 185. Whoosh. As soon as Qiping finished speaking, he left the flying beast beneath his feet and soared into the air. He stood in the air and looked down at Suamo and the others. I have no enmity with you, but since Miss Dandan wants you dead, I can only send you on your way. However, before that, you had better tell me where the person called Zhou Donghuang is. As long as you cooperate after I kill him, I can give you a quick death. If you do not cooperate, I will slowly torture you to death. As he spoke, Qiping's eyes revealed a hint of ruthlessness. Qiping stood in the air, his gray robes fluttering without any wind. He was like an old immortal, giving off a strong sense of oppression. Before Qiping had risen into the air, Lin Lan and the others had been wary of him. Now Qiping had risen into the air, his body surrounded by inner yuan. This allowed Lin Lan and the others to confirm that he was at the early primal core stage. Along the way from Yunyang country, Zhou Donghuang had told Lin Lan and the others many things about primal core adepts. This included the differences in the inner yuan of primal core adepts of different stages of practice. Therefore, Lin Lan and the others could tell at a glance that Qi Ping was only an early primal core adept. Almost as soon as Qi Ping finished speaking, Lu Qinghu could not help but snort coldly. With a face full of disdain he said, "A mere early primal core adept dares to threaten to kill my young master. You old fart, have you eaten a bear's heart or a leopard's gall? Zhou Donghuang is your young master?" Hearing Lu Qinghu's words, Qi Ping's eyes flashed. "But where is Zhou Donghuang now?" Because Qin Dandan had told Qi Ping that Zhou Donghuang was a youth. And there was no youth present, so Qi Ping did not recognize Zhou Donghuang. "Qin Dandan asked you to kill me but you don't recognize me?" Zhou Donghuang's body swayed as he rose into the air to face Qi Ping. His eyes were calm and his face was calm. Whoosh. As Zhou Donghuang rose into the air, Qi Ping's eyes narrowed. This young man in white who looked no more than 20 years old, was actually an early primal core adept like him? Primal core adept? At this time the leader of the Guiyuan sect, Tan Che, was also shocked. He had never imagined that there would be a primal core adept in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. "You are Zhou Donghuang?" Thinking of what the young man in white had just said, Qi Ping finally reacted. His eyes and face revealed a look of disbelief, and his heart was filled with extreme shock. Didn't Miss Dandan say that he was only an early Khanate stage adept? How did you become a primal core adept? Qi Ping was dumbfounded, completely dumbfounded. "Master." At this time, under the shocked gazes of Qi Ping and Tan Che, Su Mo, the head of the Valley of Medicine Masters, also rose into the air and appeared behind Zhou Donghuang. He said respectfully, "Leave this person to me." "Yes." Zhou Donghuang responded calmly. Although Su Mo had not yet entered the middle primal core stage, the inner yuan in his false core far exceeded that of an ordinary early primal core adept. In addition, he had now switched to the top technique of the universe, the Thousand-Star Sword technique, and the power of his inner yuan was enough to crush an ordinary early primal core adept. Throughout the entire Xian planet, there was basically no one below the middle primal core stage who could be a match for Su Mo other than him. How is this possible? If one were to say that Zhou Donghuang's rise into the air and display of primal core adept had already shocked Tan Che, the leader of the Guiyuan sect. But now, Su Mo's rise into the air and display of primal core adept made Tan Che wonder if he was seeing things or even dreaming. He knew Su Mo very well. 2 years ago, he had come to the Valley of the Medicine Masters to spar with Su Mo. Like him, Su Mo was also a late Khanate stage adept, and in that spar the two of them were evenly matched. Neither of them could do anything to the other, and it ended in a draw. It's actually true. After a while, after confirming that he was not seeing things and that he was not dreaming, Tan Che was completely stunned. A late Khanate stage adept had entered the primal core stage and become a primal core adept in the short span of 2 years? This Su Mo, how did he do it? This Su Mo is also a primal core adept? Qi Ping's pupils constricted again. Before he left this time, he had clearly heard from Miss Dandan that Su Mo of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was only a late Khanate stage adept. But now, Su Mo had displayed primal core adepts. Whoosh! Just as Qi Ping was shocked by Su Mo's level of practice, Su Mo had already made the first move. In a flash, his figure flashed and he flew towards Qi Ping like a ghost. Swish, 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 swish. The sound of swords whistling could be heard. As Su Mo moved, the inner yuan on the surface of his body whistled out, transforming into more than 10 flashes of swords. Except for one that supported his feet and increased his speed in an instant, the rest of the swords floated around his body and flew towards Qi Ping together with him. Seeing this, Qi Ping did not dare to be careless. His hands opened wide and pushed out, and a series of palms formed from inner yuan whizzed out from his hands, carrying with them the power of thunder as they flew towards the menacing Su Mo. Inner yuan is too scattered. Seeing Qi Ping's methods, Su Mo's indifferent tone was mixed with some disdain. A primal core adept of the Shenin sect is only SOSO. You? Just as Qi Ping's expression changed from anger at Su Mo's words, Su Mo had already met the incoming palms. As his hands danced rapidly, his sword fingers whistled out, and the palms were all destroyed by the white flashes of swords that shot out from his fingertips. Swish, 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 swish. At the same time, a dozen or so sword rays had already brought Su Mo to Qi Ping's side against the palm prints that were constantly whistling towards them. At this time, Qi Ping's face was already slightly pale. He realized that his attack could not stop his opponent at all. His opponent's methods were obviously more brilliant than his, and by several levels. His strength and that of his opponent were simply not on the same level. Run? Using the last bit of inner yuan in his body, Qi Ping tried to escape. Too late. As Su Mo spoke calmly, his figure flickered, and the dozen or so swords around him instantly merged into one, enveloping his entire body. They transformed him into a gigantic sword that whistled through the air. His speed had increased by another level compared to before. Swish. The sword broke through the air and caught up with Qi Ping in the blink of an eye. At this time, Qi Ping also realized the danger, and his expression changed dramatically as he hurriedly cried out, "I am a disciple of the Shenin sect. If you dare to kill me, the Shenin sect will not let you off, and they will not let the Valley of the Medicine Masters off." However, his words did not make Su Mo give up just like that. As the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Su Mo naturally knew that if he allowed Qi Ping to leave alive today, he, his young master, and even the Valley of the Medicine Masters would be in even greater danger. And if he killed Qi Ping, who knew how long it would take for the Shenin sect to react? With the speed of his young master's improvement, by that time, he might not have to fear the Shenin sect. Swoosh. The sword broke through the air and killed Qi Ping, who had a look of despair on his face. After all, he was only an early primal core adept of the Shenin sect. Qi Ping did not even have a space ring, and after his death he only left behind some gold notes that were commonly used by the Shenin kingdom, a subsidiary of the Shenin sect. Hiss. After personally witnessing Qi Ping being killed by Su Mo, the Guiyuan sect leader Tan Che could not help but suck in a breath of cold air when he regained his senses. When he looked at Su Mo again, there was now an additional fear in his eyes. However, he still mustered up the courage to congratulate Su Mo, Valley Head Su. Congratulations on attaining the Primal Core stage and becoming a Primal Core adept. In the depths of Tan Che's eyes, there was an undetectable flash of jealousy. He was even thinking that after he left the Valley of the Medicine Masters this time, he would inform the Shenin sect that Su Mo, the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, had killed the Shenin sect disciple, Qi Ping. Su Mo's entire body turned into a sword light as it entered his body. He glanced at Tan Che and then suddenly opened his mouth. A white sword light howled out from his mouth. Tan Che's face was filled with panic, and before he could even open his mouth to beg for mercy, Su Mo had already erased Tan Che. Master, the leader of the Guiyuan sect, Tan Che is easily jealous. If we let him leave just like that, it will be a disaster. After killing the flying demon at Tan Che's feet, Su Mo returned to Zhou Donghuang's side and explained. Su Mo and Tan Che had known each other for more than 20 years, so he naturally knew what kind of person Tan Che was. Thus, when he killed the Shenin sect disciple Qi Ping, he had no intention of letting Tan Che leave alive. Zhou Donghuang nodded calmly. From beginning to end, he had not been involved in the matter, watching coldly. Madam Mississippi. At the same time, Su Mo looked at Lin Lan and Yun Lu and said respectfully, "A year ago, I, Su Mo, was only a late Khanate stage adept. The reason I was able to enter the Primal Core stage and become a Primal Core adept in such a short period of time was entirely because of Master's generous help. I'm saying all this mainly to tell you, in the future, just treat the Valley of the Medicine Masters as your home, no need to worry. No matter what, if you come to me, Su Mo, as long as it is within my power, I will do my best to help you," Su Mo said solemnly. Hearing Su Mo's words, Lin Lan and the others were shocked. This valley head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was only a late Khanate stage adept a year ago, and in a short year he had become a Primal Core adept. And he could even easily kill the Primal Core adept of the Shenin sect. All this was because of the young man dressed in snow-white robes beside Su Mo? In that instant, the gazes of Lin Lan and the others all fell on Zhou Donghuang. Just now, that was the Thousand-Star Sword technique? Yun Lu also practiced the Thousand-Star Sword technique, and when Su Mo had attacked just now, she had felt a sense of familiarity. Now, after hearing Su Mo's words, it was not difficult for her to guess that her brother Zhou Donghuang had also taught the Thousand-Star Sword technique to this valley head. In the future, will I also have such great power? Yun Lu's large, watery eyes were filled with anticipation. Chapter 186. On his way back to the Valley of the Medicine Masters from the capital of the Xinguang Empire to the 16 countries of the East Valley, Zhou Donghuang made another trip to the black market to borrow some spirit stones in advance. At that time, the person in charge of the black market, the third elder of the Xinguang sect, Tua Ku, was not there and had returned to the sect. The other elders in charge of the black market were afraid of Zhou Donghuang's terrifying power and worried that Zhou Donghuang would not sell the spirit weapon to the Xinguang sect. So not only did they take out all the spirit stones in the black market storeroom to give to Zhou Donghuang, they also took out all the spirit stones in their hands and gave them to Zhou Donghuang. Because of this, when Zhou Donghuang returned this time, besides the 1,000 spirit stones that contained half of their spirit energy, he still had more than 1,000 spirit stones in good condition. Zhou Donghuang kept a portion of the 1,000 spirit stones for himself and gave the rest to Su Mo, Lin Lan, Yun Lu, Yang Zishi, and the others so that they could use the spirit stones to further increase the speed of their practice. After all, they no longer had the Buddhist essence to assist them in their practice. Mother, I want to make another trip to the Xinguang Empire. After I get what I want, I will return to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. After bidding farewell to Lin Lan, Zhou Donghuang left the Valley of the Medicine Masters alone on the golden-crowned eagle Big Gold, once again heading to the Xinguang Empire. This time, his main purpose was to sell the inferior primal core spirit weapon in his possession to the Xinguang sect. Once he had received the 50,000 spirit stones from the Xinguang sect, he planned to return to the Valley of the Medicine Masters for a period of time to further increase his level of practice. Now, with his superior primal core spirit weapon, he was invincible in the entire Ziyun planet against anyone below the Golden Essence stage, but that was all. Once a Golden Essence adept attacked, it would be difficult for him to contend with him with his current power. Of course, while the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold, was on its way to the capital of the Darkstone Empire, Zhou Donghuang did not remain idle. He set up a chi-gathering formation on the eagle's back and concentrated on his practice. It was only when they reached the capital of the Xinguang Empire and reached the sky above the black market that he stopped practicing. Big Gold, just wait for me here. After bidding farewell to Big Gold, Zhou Donghuang descended and entered the black market. This time in the black market, Zhou Donghuang not only met the third elder of the Divine Light sect, Tuaku, but also an old monk who Tuaku was so respectful to. Young Master Donghuang, this is my uncle Master, Ci Xian. Taku introduced the old monk to Zhou Donghuang. This old monk wore a golden kasaya, and his bald head was dotted with 12 scars. He had been meditating with his eyes closed, but as Tuaku's voice fell, he suddenly opened his eyes. Although he looked kind and benevolent, his body exuded an invisible and oppressive aura. He really is a golden core cultivator. Zhou Donghuang had already guessed that the old monk was a golden essence adept of the Divine Light sect when he had first seen Tuaku's respectful attitude towards the old monk. Now, sensing the invisible aura emanating from the old monk, Zhou Donghuang was completely sure of this. Yes. Hearing Tuaku's introduction, Zhou Donghuang nodded lightly, completely ignoring Ci Xian's gaze on him, as if he was trying to see through him. His expression did not change and he was unperturbed. In the eyes of the Divine Light sect's golden essence adept, Zhou Donghuang's expression became even more unfathomable. Sir, please do not blame the Divine Light sect for being rash. Ci Xian's wrinkled old face squeezed out a smile that was uglier than a crying face. After all, this concerns a transaction of tens of thousands of spirit stones. The Divine Light sect has no choice but to be cautious. Yes. Zhou Donghuang nodded again, and with a wave of his hand, the exquisite hill that had previously appeared in front of Tuaku appeared once again. He used his inner yuan to send it in front of Ci Xian, allowing Ci Xian to reach out and test it. It is indeed a spirit weapon. After Ci Xian tested the power of the exquisite hill, his originally cloudy eyes suddenly flashed with a bright light, and his old face moved slightly as if he had lost his composure. Although he was the Divine Light sect's golden essence adept, the entire Divine Light sect only had one spirit weapon, and it was in the hands of his senior, the other golden essence adept of the Divine Light sect. Once this spirit weapon fell into the hands of the Divine Light sect, it would definitely be his. Throughout the entire Divine Light sect, only he was worthy of owning the second spirit weapon of the Divine Light sect. Where are the spirit stones? Seeing that Ci Xian's attention was completely drawn to the spirit weapon, Zhou Donghuang reminded him. Upon hearing this, Ci Xian reluctantly kept the spirit weapon in his hands, and immediately handed an unused space ring to Zhou Donghuang. Sir, this is the 50,000 spirit stones of the Divine Light sect. As for this space ring worth 10,000 spirit stones, consider it a gift from us to you. An ordinary space ring would not be able to contain 50,000 spirit stones. Therefore, the space ring that Ci Xian had taken out now, which contained 50,000 spirit stones, was an expensive high-grade space ring. The quality of the space stone used to make the space ring was incomparable to the quality of the space stone used to make the ordinary space ring. Of course, in Zhou Donghuang's eyes, using such a high-quality space stone to make a space ring of this grade was also a reckless waste of resources. As long as he refined the space ring again, he could make a better one. I, Zhou Donghuang, do not like to owe people favors. After Zhou Donghuang kept the space ring, he took out a pen and paper from his own space ring. On it, he wrote down the various materials needed to make the space ring. He then wrapped the paper with his inner yuan and presented it to Ci Xian. As long as you can gather all the materials on this, the next time I come to the black market, I will help the Divine Light sect to make a spirit weapon for free. Boom. As soon as Zhou Donghuang's words fell into the ears of Ci Xian and Tua Ku, it was like a bolt from the blue. The two of them were struck dumb, and it took them a while to recover their senses. Sir, you mean you can make a spirit weapon? Ci Xian was the first to recover his senses. He inhaled sharply, and when he looked at Zhou Donghuang again, his gaze was full of shock. This young man, who looked to be less than 20 years old, had the ability to make a spirit weapon? It should be pointed out that in the entire Ziyun planet, there was no one who had the ability to forge a spirit weapon. Even the only two spirit weapons that the Ziyun planet had previously possessed were from outside the planet, and they were not created by the local adepts of the Ziyun planet. But now there was someone saying that he could make a spirit weapon. After Tua Ku recovered his senses, he looked at Zhou Donghuang as if he had seen a ghost. Zhou Donghuang nodded slightly. Gather the materials well. The next time I come to the black market, if the Divine Light sect can produce those materials, I will make a spirit weapon for free. If the next time I come, the Divine Light sect cannot produce those materials, I will forget about this matter. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Donghuang turned and left without looking back. Only when Zhou Donghuang's silhouette disappeared from Ci Xian and Tua Ku's sight did the two of them regain their senses. When they looked at each other, they could see the shock in each other's eyes. Tua Ku, do you think he can really make a spirit weapon? Ci Xian asked. Uncle. Tua Ku smiled bitterly. In your heart, you should already have the answer, right? Of course, regardless of whether you already have the answer in your heart, I think that he is not lying. He must really be able to make a spirit weapon himself, otherwise he would not have made such a bold claim. Although he had not known the young man for long, Tua Ku could tell that he was not someone who spoke without thinking. Furthermore, just by looking at the formula for the chi-gathering core that he had produced, he could tell that he could do what others could not. Even if he knew how to make weapons, it seemed logical. I will return to the sect immediately and inform the head of this matter, so that he can order us to gather these materials as soon as possible. Just as Tua Ku had said, Ci Xian already had the answer in his heart. This time, Ci Xian had left the Divine Light sect and followed Tua Ku to the black market for two reasons. Firstly, to ensure that the spirit weapon transaction went smoothly, and secondly, to test the young man who had produced the spirit weapon. Although it was the first time they had met, the young man's calmness and fearlessness made him realize that the young man was no ordinary person. This kind of person, if the Divine Light sect could not afford to offend, it would be best not to. But what he did not expect was, he had still underestimated the young man. The young man actually had the ability to make a spirit weapon. Even if he did not fully believe what the young man had said, as long as there was a glimmer of hope for the Divine Light sect to have a third spirit weapon, he had to seize the opportunity and not let it slip through his fingers. Big Gold returned to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. After receiving the 50,000 spirit stones, Zhou Donghuang did not linger in the capital of the Xinguang Empire, and immediately ordered the golden-crowned eagle, Big Gold, to return to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Once he returned to the Valley of the Medicine Masters, he would spend the next period of time in seclusion. 50,000 spirit stones were enough to set up a huge chi-gathering formation, and the effect would be strong, far beyond that of a mere 1,000 spirit stones. After this seclusion is over, I should also leave the planet of Ziyun. To Zhou Donghuang, the planet of Ziyun was just like the Earth in his previous life. It was too small, and it could only be considered as a starting point for him. There was no room for him at all. Only the vast and boundless universe could allow him to expand his abilities and forge a new world for himself. On May 25, 1231 of the Ziyun era, Zhou Donghuang returned to the Valley of the Medicine Masters and used 50,000 spirit stones to set up a huge energy-gathering formation in a small valley that was like a paradise for himself and the people around him to practice. What a dense spirit energy! My God! What kind of technique is this? Young master is really a god. If I practice here, It won't be long before I can definitely enter the Khanate stage and become a Khanate adept. After the spirit gathering formation was set up, the cultivation environment in the valley underwent an earth-shattering change. Fu, Freezing Wind, and the others gasped in surprise. Even Lu Qinghu lost his composure and started to shout like a child. As for Zhou Donghuang, he had already entered the wooden hut that Su Mo had personally built for him and began to practice in seclusion, paying no attention to the outside world. Chapter 187. The Shenin sect was one of the top 5 sects of the Ziyun planet, on par with the Divine Light sect. And today the Shenin sect was not peaceful. Today is the birthday of Big Brother and I. We have an agreement that no matter what happens, we must come back before each other's birthdays to celebrate together. In the past 200 years, we have not missed a single year. On February 21, 1232 of the Ziyun era, late at night, a skinny old man in a black robe walked out of the courtyard. This time Big Brother did not come back. Something must have happened. This old man was called Qian, the 19th elder of the Shenin sect. The Shenin sect was like the Divine Light sect, where only mid-primal core adepts could become sect elders. Before Big Brother left a year ago, did he see the new female disciple of Elder Zhongya, Miss Dandan? After spending an entire night, Qian finally found the key clue of his big brother Qi Ping's departure from the Shenin sect. The clue pointed to the new female disciple of Zhongya, one of the 2 grand elders of the Shenin sect, Qin Dandan. Miss Dandan. Qian went straight to the door to find Qin Dandan. My brother Qi Ping met you before he left the Shenin sect. Do you know where he went when he left? Qi Ping? Qin Dandan frowned. Speaking of which, I have not seen him since I saw him a year ago. 19th elder, are you sure that the time he left after meeting me was the last time he left? After that, no one has seen him return to the sect? I checked for an entire night, and I can confirm that after that time, he did not return to the sect. Qian's voice was too gloomy and seemed a little hoarse. Yesterday was our birthday. For the past 200 years, we have celebrated our birthdays together every year. That was also the agreement between us brothers. Since the day of the agreement, this year was the first time he did not keep it. There are only 2 possibilities for him not keeping it. Either he is trapped somewhere and cannot return, or he has already been killed. At this point, Qian's expression became even more gloomy. The reason I've come to look for you, Miss Dandan, is to ask you, do you know where he went when he left the sect? Qian asked. I know. Qin Dandan nodded. I had a chat with him at that time. I talked about my hometown, the 16 countries of the East Valley, and then I mentioned my enemies there. He said that he could go to the 16 countries of the East Valley and help me get rid of my enemies. Miss Dandan, you mean, he went to your hometown and there was no news of him? Qian's eyes flashed. He knew his elder brother, Qi Ping, better than anyone else. Naturally, he knew why Qi Ping had taken the initiative to go to the 16 countries of the East Valley. It was because he wanted to curry favor with the woman in front of him and form a relationship with ancestor Zhongya of the Shenin sect. All along, his big brother, Qi Ping, liked to walk the unorthodox path. Otherwise, his cultivation would not have been lower than his. They were twins and their martial arts talent was not that bad. However, he was already a mid-primal core adept, while his elder brother Qi Ping was only an early primal core adept. Yes. Qin Dandan nodded. However, in the 16 countries of the East Valley, there is no one who could be his match. In the 16 countries of the East Valley, the strongest is the head of the Valley of Medicine Masters, Su Mo, but he is only a late Khanate adept. As for my enemy Zhou Donghuang, he is only at the early Khanate stage. Although he has the sword sphere to rely on, the sword sphere does not pose any threat to a primal core adept. Qin Dandan said. Miss Dandan, please tell me the location of the 16 countries of the East Valley. Qian begged. Although his elder brother had most likely met with some accident because he wanted to help the woman in front of him, he could not blame the woman in front of him, because it was his elder brother who had taken the initiative to help the woman. Taking a step back, even if his elder brother had not taken the initiative, and the woman had forced his elder brother to go, he would not dare to blame the woman in front of him. The woman in front of him was a disciple of the Shenin sect's Golden Essence Elder, and her status in the Shenin sect was very high. Even the late primal core elders of the Shenin sect had to be polite when they saw her, let alone a mid-primal core elder like him. All right. Qin Dandan nodded, and in a few words she told Qian the location of the 16 countries of the East Valley. After Qian left, Qin Dandan raised an eyebrow. I wonder if Qi Ping met with an accident on the way to the 16 countries of the East Valley, or on the way back to the Shenin sect. If it was the former, he definitely did not have time to kill Zhou Donghuang and destroy the Valley of Medicine Masters. And if it was the latter, he should have already killed Zhou Donghuang and destroyed the Valley of Medicine Masters. That way, he would have died a worthy death. Qin Dandan did not care about Qi Ping's life or death. What she cared about was whether Zhou Donghuang had been killed by Qi Ping, and whether the Valley of Medicine Masters had been destroyed by Qi Ping. The Divine Light Sect. For more than a year, the people sent out by Eagle Eye who were responsible for gathering information about the Divine Light Sect, had all returned, except for Eagle Eye's second-in-command, the 10th Elder of the Divine Light Sect, Lin Hantian. Why hasn't the 10th Elder returned yet? The highest person in charge of Eagle Eye, the 5th Elder of the Divine Light Sect, Tua Bei, faintly felt that something was not right. With the speed of the primal core demon that he is riding and being in charge of searching in one direction, it is reasonable to say that he should have returned long ago. Definitely not later than the others. Could it be that something has happened to him? At this thought, Tua Bei's face suddenly darkened. Although Lin Hantian was only the 10th Elder of the Divine Light Sect, his potential was so high that in his generation, it was enough to rank him in the top 3. Lin Hantian was also one of the few people of his generation who had the most hope of entering the ultimate primal core stage and becoming a golden essence adept. Such a person was very important to the Divine Light Sect, and it would not be an exaggeration to call him a future pillar. But now, something seemed to have happened to him. Without any hesitation, Tua Bei went directly to the head of the Divine Light Sect and told him his guess. After the head of the Divine Light Sect heard Tua Bei's guess, he immediately ordered Tua Bei and 2 other late primal core elders to leave the sect and search for Lin Hantian. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his corpse. This was the request of the head of the Divine Light Sect. When Tua Bei and the other 2 left the Divine Light Sect, they happened to meet an old monk in a golden cassock who had just returned from outside, and they immediately bowed respectfully to him. "Greetings, uncle." "Greetings, uncle." This old monk in the golden cassock was none other than the Golden Essence Elder of the Divine Light Sect, Xi Xian. "The 3 of you seem to be in a hurry. Where are you headed?" Xi Xian asked curiously. "Uncle." Tua Bei smiled bitterly. "It's like this?" After a while, Tua Bei revealed his guess. "So, I think that something has probably happened to the 10th Elder. Does old man Lin know about this?" Xi Xian asked with a frown. Although Lin Hantian was only the 10th Elder of the Divine Light Sect, because of his great potential, his importance to the Divine Light Sect was no less than that of a few late primal core elders who were more than 200 years old added together. The latter might have a glimmer of hope of entering the ultimate primal core stage, but it was absolutely impossible for him to break through to the Dharma stage. And Lin Hantian, who was not even 100 years old, was already a mid-primal core adept. In the future he would most likely enter the ultimate primal core stage, and even have a chance of breaking through to the Dharma stage. In addition, Lin Hantian belonged to the Crown Prince faction in the Divine Light Sect. Lin Hantian's grandfather was one of the 3 Golden Essence Elders of the Divine Light Sect, and he was also the only disciple of the 3 Golden Essence Elders. In the Divine Light Sect, among the 3 Golden Essence Elders, Xi Xian and his senior were titled Protectors. Xi Xian was the right protector, and his senior was the left protector. Lin Hantian's grandfather carried the title of Grand Elder. Among the 3 Golden Essence Elders of the Divine Light Sect, Xi Xian Sr. was the strongest, followed by him and finally Lin Hantian's grandfather. "Uncle Master, please keep this matter a secret. Don't tell the sect Grand Elder for now. The sect leader feels that it is not appropriate for the sect Grand Elder to know about this. Otherwise, it will definitely affect the sect Grand Elder's state of mind and prevent him from ever entering the Dharma stage again." Tua Bei said with a bitter smile. "I know the severity of the matter." Xi Xian nodded. "However, this matter, even if no one tells him, it will not be kept a secret for long. All right, you guys go." After Tua Bei and the other 2 had left, Xi Xian sighed. "Now, I can only hope that Zhou Donghuang goes to the black market as soon as possible and helps the Divine Light Sect forge the 3rd spirit weapon. When the spirit weapon is in old man Lin's hands, even if something happens to Lin Hantian, he will feel better. If the Divine Light Sect obtained the 3rd spirit weapon, it would definitely be given to the Golden Essence Elder whose strength was second only to him." Xi Xian, the Golden Essence Elder of the Divine Light Sect, had just returned from the capital of the Xinguang Empire. He had personally gathered all the materials that the young man named Zhou Donghuang had requested and delivered them to the black market, to the third elder of the Divine Light sect, Tuaku. This is the Valley of the Medicine Masters? The 19th elder of the Shenin sect, Qian, had spent nearly 2 months before he finally found the location of the 16 countries of the East Valley. He had also inquired about the location of the Valley of the Medicine Masters from one of the smaller countries, and had immediately come to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. I am the 19th elder of the Shenin sect, Qian. Where is the head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Suemo? Qian's voice, which contained a strong inner yuan, spread throughout the Valley of the Medicine Masters in the blink of an eye, causing a group of people in the Valley of the Medicine Masters to subconsciously raise their heads to look at the horizon. The voice had come from there. The 19th elder of the Shenin sect? Suemo was practicing in the valley, which was like a paradise. Upon hearing the voice, he opened his eyes immediately and frowned slightly. Jian? He has the same surname as the disciple of the Shenin sect, Qi Ping, who died at my hands. Looks like he has come for Qi Ping. Based on the other party's background and name, it was not difficult for Suemo to guess this. Chapter 188. The 19th Elder of the Shenin Sect? Although Suemo had no idea what the title of the 19th Elder of the Shenin Sect meant, he was still certain that the other party could not be a late Primal Core Adept. After all, the 17th Elder of the Divine Light Sect, Lu Xuanyu, who had died at the hands of his master, was only a mid-Primal Core Adept. Although the Shenin Sect and the Divine Light Sect were equally famous in terms of heritage, the Shenin Sect was not as good as the Divine Light Sect. The 17th Elder of the Divine Light Sect was only a mid-Primal Core Adept, and the 19th Elder of the Shenin Sect was at most a mid-Primal Core Adept. A mid-Primal Core Adept? Sumo's eyes narrowed and a cold light flashed in his eyes. He leaped into the air and flew toward the source of the voice. In the blink of an eye, Suemo was in the air above the valley where the Valley of the Medicine Masters was located, facing off against an old man in a black robe who had been waiting there. He really is a mid-Primal Core Adept. Before he had even gotten close to the old man, Suemo could tell from the milky white inner yuan that he was a mid-Primal Core Adept who had already condensed his core. However, when he approached the old man and saw his face clearly, Suemo couldn't help but be stunned. If not for the fact that he was absolutely certain that the disciple of the Shenin sect, Qi Ping, had died at his hands, he would really have thought that Qi Ping had not died that day, and had instead recovered from his injuries and broken through to the middle Primal Core stage before returning to settle the score with him. This was because, at first glance, the old man before him looked exactly the same as Qi Ping, the disciple of the Shenin sect who had died at his hands a year ago. Of course, after carefully sizing him up for a while, Suemo still noticed some minor differences between him and Qi Ping. For example, the other party was much calmer than Qi Ping. Who are you? As Suemo approached, the 19th Elder of the Shenin sect, Qian, could tell from the milky white inner yuan that the other party was also a mid-Primal Core Adept like himself. While he was shocked that there was a Primal Core Adept in such a small and secluded place, a look of fear appeared in his eyes. Didn't you come to find me? You even know my name and now you're asking who I am? Suemo raised his eyebrows and looked at Qian mockingly. Almost as soon as Sumo's words fell, Qian's pupils shrank sharply, and he involuntarily asked, You are the head of the Valley of Medicine Masters, Suemo? I won't change my name or my surname. Sumo's tone was still indifferent. After receiving Sumo's confirmation, Qianxin could not help but silently curse the female disciple Qindandan of the Shenin sect, Zhongya. Didn't they say that the head of the Valley of Medicine Masters was only a late Khanate stage adept? How was this a Khanate adept? He was clearly a Primal Core Adept. Furthermore, it was a mid-Primal Core Adept who was on par with him. Valley Master Su. After seeing that the other party was also a mid-Primal Core Adept, Qian's tone became much friendlier. I am the 19th Elder of the Shenin sect, Qian. I have a twin brother named Qi Ping. A year ago he should have come to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Have you seen him? From Qian's perspective, his twin brother, Qi Ping, no matter how unorthodox he was, after seeing that the head of the Valley of Medicine Masters was a mid-Primal Core Adept, he would definitely not dare to provoke him again. No wonder you look the same as that Qi Ping, so you are twin brothers. Suemo suddenly understood. However, your twin brother is far inferior to you. He is only an early Primal Core Adept. Valley Master Su has seen my brother? Qian's eyes lit up. Just as Qian was about to ask Suemo further about his brother's whereabouts, Suemo had already spoken first. I have. Yes, not only have I seen him, I killed him with my own hands. Suemo said this casually as if he had not killed a primal core adept, but a wild chicken or dog. Whoosh. Qian's expression changed as Suemo spoke, and his eyes flashed with a cold, murderous look before he was able to suppress it. Sir, why did you kill my brother? He is a disciple of the Shenin sect. Even if he was in the wrong, it should be the Shenin sect who punished him. Outsiders have no right to kill him. I did not just kill him. Today, since you have delivered yourself to my doorstep, don't go back. A murderous look flashed in Sumo's eyes, and his arms bent slightly. The most conspicuous thing was the pair of gloves he wore on both of his hands. On the index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and little finger of each glove, there was a sharp claw embedded. Upon closer inspection, it was no different from an eagle's claw. Upon closer inspection, it was not difficult to see that on each eagle's claw, there were countless fine lines carved into it. Even on the surface of the leather gloves, there were some clearly visible lines carved into them, and they looked very special. I will immediately send you to reunite with him. Suemo grinned. His brilliant smile was enough to charm thousands of women. Qian had never dreamed that this Valley Master of the Valley of Medicine Masters would be so domineering. Not only did he not reason with him, but he had immediately said that he would kill him and send him to reunite with his twin brother, Qi Ping. After a moment's daze, when he recovered, the anger in Qian's eyes exploded like a prairie fire, and it could not be controlled. Suemo, you talk big. Qian's face was full of anger, and he said in a low, cold voice, however, if you want to kill me, you must first have the ability to do so. In Qian's view, this Valley Master of the Valley of Medicine Masters, Suemo, was only an unorthodox mid-primal core adept, and his strength was certainly not as good as that of an adept from the Shenin sect. Even if Sumo's strength was really stronger than his, and they were both mid-primal core adepts, he had full confidence that he could escape unscathed. As long as he returned to the Shenin sect, he could find helpers to come and destroy Suemo and the Valley of Medicine Masters. If you can take one blow from me, I will let you go. Suemo smiled indifferently, and with a shake of his body, the inner yuan on his body surged and transformed into a huge sword, bringing him whistling towards Qian as fast as lightning. Whoosh! Qian had long been prepared, and as Suemo transformed into a sword and swept towards him, he had already made his move. He was one step ahead of Sumo's straight figure. Shameless boasting. I'm sorry. I was just warming up and now I'm ready to attack you. Suemo did not seem at all surprised that Qian could avoid his sweeping figure, and as he spoke again, his arms bent slightly, and his gloved hands slowly clenched into fists. Apart from his thumbs, the other 8 fingers on his hands were bent like a strong bow. To be the first person to die at the hands of the spirit weapon that my master has forged for me, you Qian have not lived in vain. As soon as he finished speaking, Sumo's arms suddenly straightened, and the fingers on his hands, which were bent like strong bows, also popped out in an instant. Spirit weapon. When he heard Sumo's words, Qian's pupils subconsciously contracted, and his face showed shock. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. However, in the blink of an eye, the sound of swords whistling in his ears caused Qian to completely regain his senses. Only then did he realize that there were 8 rays of sword light shooting out from Sumo's hands, and within each ray of sword light, there was an independent sharp claw. The 8 sharp claws were like 8 exquisite little swords, and in the blink of an eye, they were right in front of him. Even if he wanted to escape now, it was already too late. In a hurry, Qian's face darkened, and the true origin energy that he had been accumulating burst out completely. As his hands moved, it turned into blade after blade of true origin energy blade light, and met the 8 menacing and fierce rays of sword light. In the blink of an eye, on top of Qian's pair of palm blades, hundreds of rays of sword light flew out, one after another, intending to take turns to resist the 8 rays of sword light coming from Suemo. However, the 8 rays of sword light were extremely fierce and overbearing, and as easy as breaking dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, they completely defeated the oncoming rays of sword light, displaying a power that was on a completely different level. How is this possible? If it was said that Qian did not have any concept of these 8 rays of sword light before, then now, seeing the 8 rays of sword light easily defeat his all-out attack, he clearly realized that the disparity between them was simply not on the same level. The terror of the 8 rays of sword light was completely beyond his imagination. Run. After realizing that his attack had been completely crushed by his opponent, Qian did not even have time to think about how a middle primal core adept could display such a terrifying attack. Now he only had one thought left, and that was to escape from this place, lest he die here. But at this time, could Qian escape even if he wanted to? I've said, since you're here, don't go back. Sumo's figure flashed like lightning, and in the blink of an eye, he was near where Qian had been. With a lift of his hands, the 8 claws of the 8 rays of sword light returned to the fingertips of his gloved fingers. In the next moment, Sumo struck again. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. This time, the 8 rays of sword light formed from the 8 claws joined together halfway, transforming into a 3-foot ray of sword light. With an absurd speed, it caught up with Qian, and after piercing through Qian's hands which he had turned to defend himself, it pierced through Qian's brow. The entire process happened in the blink of an eye. Qian, the 19th elder of the Shenin sect, was dead. Whoosh! Sumo moved. After the 8 claws returned to the glove, he took the opportunity to remove the space ring from Qian's hand. Afterwards, a palm whistled out, and the vast true essence caused Qian's corpse to turn into a bloody mist that filled the air in the blink of an eye. It floated down as if it was raining blood. This mid-grade spirit weapon that Master gave me is really useful. Sumo looked at the pair of gloves in his hands, and a bright smile appeared on his face. The pair of spirit weapon gloves in Sumo's hands had been made by Zhou Donghuang using the sharp claws of the eagle-type primal core demon that had accompanied the 10th elder of the Divine Light sect, Lin Hantian, and some other materials. It was a mid-grade spirit weapon that could increase one's inner yuan by 30%. In a moment, Sumo looked at the place that he had labeled as the forbidden area of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, the little valley that was like a paradise, and muttered to himself, I wonder how long Master intends to stay in seclusion this time. Chapter 189. June 12, 1232 of the Ziyun era. The 5th elder of the Divine Light sect, Tua Bei, and the other 2 late primal core elders of the Divine Light sect had finally returned to the Divine Light sect after investigating the disappearance of the 10th elder of the Divine Light sect, Lin Hantian, for nearly half a year. Patriarch. When the 3 of them returned to the Divine Light sect, they immediately went to find the Patriarch, Tua Jin. Tua Jin was a middle-aged monk in a white cassock. His face was like jade and his eyes were like stars. At first glance he seemed very benevolent, giving people the feeling of a spring breeze. But as his eyes focused on Tua Bei and the other 2, he seemed dignified without being angry. How is the investigation going? Tua Jin's voice was calm as if it contained no emotion. Patriarch. After nearly half a year of investigation, we have finally confirmed that the place where the 10th elder Lin Hantian was last seen is a remote place outside the Xinguang Empire known as the 16 countries of the East Valley. He was last seen in a small town in Yunyang, one of the 16 countries of the East Valley. That small town is called Qingshan Town. Tua Bei said. Why would he go to such a remote place? Tua Jin asked again. Tua Bei smiled bitterly. Patriarch, didn't you order us to investigate the origins of the 2 unknown people who appeared in the black market? The 10th elder went there precisely because he found out that the young man was from Qingshan Town. Young man? Tua Jin's eyes lit up. You mean to say that the young man who sold us the formula for qi-gathering elixirs twice and even sold us a spirit weapon, Zhou Donghuang, came from the remote 16 countries of the East Valley? At that time, Zhou Donghuang had fought with Tua Ku at the black market, and after suppressing him he had given his name. Tua Ku had also reported the matter to the Divine Light sect in full detail. Therefore, in the Divine Light sect, Tua Jin, the Patriarch, and Tua Bei, the person in charge of the Divine Light sect's Eagle Eye, had long known Zhou Donghuang's name. Yes. Tua Bei nodded. I specifically confirmed that Zhou Donghuang is indeed from the 16 countries of the East Valley. In fact, he is only from one of the small countries of the 16 countries of the East Valley. 5 years ago, he was still a martial arts cripple in the small town where he was born and raised. As he spoke, Tua Bei subconsciously glanced at Tua Jin, the leader of the Divine Light sect. Indeed, as he had expected, Tua Jin's eyes were filled with disbelief. When he first found out about these things, he also found it hard to believe. After all, before going to the 16 countries of the East Valley, he had already known that Zhou Donghuang had the ability to suppress the power of a late primal core adept, and he seemed to be able to forge spirit weapons. This person, who could be said to be a genius in the Ziyun planet, actually came from such a remote place? No matter who it was, they wouldn't dare to believe it. Grandmaster. At this time, another elder of the Divine Light sect beside Tua Bei reported, "We have also investigated the identity of the middle-aged man beside Zhou Donghuang. He is the valley head of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, a small sect that controls the 16 countries of the East Valley. His name is Su Mo, and he was only a late Khanate adept 2 years ago. He can be said to be the most powerful person in the 16 countries of the East Valley, but in the end he was willing to acknowledge Zhou Donghuang, who was of lowly birth, as his master." This time, Tua Bei and the other 2 elders had investigated many things in the 16 countries of the East Valley. 2 years ago he was only a late Khanate adept? Tua Jin's eyes narrowed. Even in the history of the Divine Light sect, there had never been anyone who could leap from the late Khanate stage to the early Primal Core stage in 1 short year. If he remembered correctly, the news from the black market said that the middle-aged man beside Zhou Donghuang was already a Primal Core adept more than a year ago. It looks like there are indeed many secrets on Zhou Donghuang. As the leader of the Divine Light sect, this was the first time that Tua Jin was unable to see through someone. This young man named Zhou Donghuang was more mysterious and unpredictable than any of the Golden Essence elders of the other 4 sects of the Ziyun planet. Grandmaster. The elder of the Divine Light sect, who had been silent all this while, was the last to speak. According to our investigations, not long after the 10th elder arrived in Qingshan town, Zhou Donghuang also returned to Qingshan town, bringing his adoptive mother and the others to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. We suspect that the 10th elder was most likely killed by him. As the elder of the Divine Light sect spoke, the atmosphere in the courtyard became quiet in an instant. Finally, it was Tua Jin, the leader of the Divine Light sect, who spoke first, breaking the silence. "These matters you should keep them to yourselves. Do not spread it out. I will go report this matter to my master now, and see if we can inform the highest elder of this matter." Tua Jin's master was one of the 3 Golden Essence elders of the Divine Light sect, the Guardian of the Right, Ci Xian. As for the highest elder that he spoke of, it was the other Golden Essence elder of the Divine Light sect. He was the grandfather of the 10th elder, Lin Hantian, who was most likely dead, Lin Ju. That rascal Lin Hantian could have died at the hands of Zhou Donghuang? When Tua Jin reported the matter to his master, the Guardian of the Right, Ci Xian's brows were also furrowed. "Although I have only seen Zhou Donghuang once, but, from the description of that rascal Tua Ku, that Zhou Donghuang should not be someone who would kill indiscriminately." "Master." Tua Jin smiled bitterly. "I believe that. But we have to consider another point. Perhaps it was the 10th elder who intensified the conflict, prompting him to kill the 10th elder." "That is possible." Ci Xian nodded. "Master, the truth cannot be contained. I feel that we should inform the highest elder of this matter." Tua Jin said. "You do not have to worry about this matter. I will inform Senior and then we will go look for old Lin together." Ci Xian's eyes flashed as he spoke in a low voice. Spring passed and autumn came. Unknowingly, it was already June 1233 in the Ziyun era. And in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, it was still peaceful. "I have finally broken through." At the edge of a small valley that was like a paradise, an old woman sitting cross-legged on a stone platform suddenly opened her eyes. The murkiness in her eyes disappeared in an instant, replaced by a brilliant light. The old woman was the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Yu Mei-chin. Ever since the energy-gathering formation in this little valley had been set up 2 years ago, not only had the valley head Su Mo come here to train, but even the 2 guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, as well as the head elder of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, had received special permission to train at the edge of the little valley. More than a year ago, Yu Mei-chin had successfully entered the late Khanate stage. And today she had successfully entered the ultimate Khanate stage and become an ultimate Khanate adept. As for the 2 guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, their level of practice was higher than Yu Mei-chin's, and as early as half a year ago, they had already entered the ultimate Khanate stage and were now attempting to break through to the Primal Core stage. Head Elder. Almost at the same time that Yu Mei-chin opened her eyes, a melodious voice reached her ears, causing her excited expression to freeze. In the next moment, a little girl of about 8 or 9 years of age moved, bringing with her a 3-foot-long green light with her. In the blink of an eye, she appeared beside Yu Mei-chin, her eyes shining as she said, "You have finally entered the ultimate Khanate stage, come. Let's spar." Miss Yun Lu. Looking at the little girl, Yu Mei-chin's eyes were filled with affection, and her old face was filled with a bitter smile. "Don't come and torture these old bones of mine. I'm no match for you. If you want to find someone to spar with, go find the two guardians. After all, they have become ultimate Khanate adepts before you. As soon as she finished speaking, Yu Meichin immediately looked at the two old men, one fat and one skinny, who were practicing on the adjacent stone platform with their eyes closed. These two old men were the two guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Wang Tao and Yu Wei. They are no match for me, there is no point in sparring with them. Yunlu pouted and shook her head. I want to spar with you now. The corner of Yu Meichin's mouth twitched. 3 months ago, when this little girl had just entered the ultimate Khanate stage, the scene of her trampling on the two guardians of the Valley of the Medicine Masters was still fresh in her mind. She did not want to follow in their footsteps. Just as Yu Meichin was racking her brains to think of a way to fool the girl in front of her, a figure walked out from a wooden house in the small valley. It caught her attention in a timely manner, causing her eyes to light up. She knew that she had been saved. Young Master Donghuang, you have come out of seclusion? Yu Meichin stood up and bowed respectfully to the person who had come. 2 years had not left any trace on the young man's face. He walked over looking like his feet were on the ground, but if one looked closely, one could see that he was walking in the air, looking like he was stepping on the grass, but in reality he was not touching the grass. Head elder, don't try to trick me. Yunlu did not turn around as she looked at Yu Meichin and laughed. You must be trying to slip away when I turn around, right? Head elder, Guardian Wang Tao used this method a month ago and I fell for it once. I will not fall for it again. Xiao Lu will fall for it again? After nodding at Yu Meichin, Zhou Donghuang looked at the girl's back with a doting expression and asked with a faint smile. The sudden voice behind her made Yunlu's body pause for a moment, and the next moment her little face lit up with joy. She abandoned Yu Meichin and turned to run, flying into the arms of the young man dressed in snow-white robes. Big brother, you have come out of seclusion? Zhou Donghuang held Yunlu in one arm and stroked her little head with the other. He smiled and asked, Xiao Lu, Big Brother is preparing to go to the capital of the Xinguang Empire, and may even make a trip to the Divine Light sect. Do you want to go with Big Brother? Yes. Yunlu's eyes shone, and she nodded like a chick pecking at rice, as if deeply afraid that Zhou Donghuang would regret his decision. Chapter 190. Zhou Donghuang rode the golden-crowned eagle Little Gold with Yunlu and left the Valley of the Medicine Masters for the capital of the Xinguang Empire. Originally he had intended to bring Big Gold with him. After all, Big Gold had been to the Xinguang Empire many times and was familiar with the route. But Little Gold insisted on going, saying that the young master was biased and that he had never left the backwater of the 16 countries of the East Valley, so Zhou Donghuang let him be. Moreover, Little Gold's level of practice had now caught up with Big Gold and was not any slower. Young master, I heard from Big Gold that the capital of the Xinguang Empire is bigger than 10 of the Valley of the Medicine Masters? Big brother, do the people of the Xinguang Empire look like the people of the 16 countries of the East Valley? After leaving the Valley of the Medicine Masters, Little Gold and Yunlu seemed to have become curious babies, and kept asking questions. At first, Zhou Donghuang would explain a little, but in the end he did not speak anymore. Now Little Gold was like Big Gold, having successfully condensed his inner core and entered the Primal Core stage. As a Primal Core demon, he no longer needed to communicate with Zhou Donghuang in the demon language, but could directly communicate with humans in the human language. Seeing that her brother was ignoring her, Yunlu pouted, feeling wronged. But after being angry for a while, she started chatting with Little Gold again, occasionally letting out a tinkling laugh. One person, one win, they chatted happily. As for Zhou Donghuang, he sat cross-legged on Little Gold's back practicing with his eyes closed, as if he could not hear anything around him. We're here. In less than half a month, the capital of the Xinguang Empire appeared before the two of them and the eagle. As Zhou Donghuang spoke, both Yunlu and Little Gold stared at the city in the distance, which looked like a giant beast crouching there. It was the first time in their lives that they had seen such a large city. Big brother, I don't want to go to that black market with you. Can I wander around the capital of the Xinguang Empire by myself? As they neared the capital of the Xinguang Empire, Yunlu looked at Zhou Donghuang expectantly. However, you must promise me that you will not leave the capital of the Xinguang Empire. Also, if you encounter any danger, crush the jade tablet that I gave you and I will rush over immediately. Zhou Donghuang nodded, but at the same time his expression turned serious. Before setting off from the Valley of the Medicine Masters this time, Zhou Donghuang had specially refined a few matching pairs of mother and child jade pendants. The jade pendants were inscribed with a matrix. Once the child jade pendant was crushed, the mother jade pendant would sense it, and at the same time, it could locate where the child jade pendant had been crushed. However, because of the materials used, the mother-child jade pendant that Zhou Donghuang had refined could only sense the entire capital of the Xinguang Empire. However, this was enough. Got it, brother? Yunlu's eyes lit up and she playfully stuck out her tongue when she got his permission. Oh. After instructing Little Gold to enter the capital of the Xinguang Empire and arrive in the sky above the black market, Zhou Donghuang carried Yunlu and flew out. In the blink of an eye, they landed at the entrance of the black market. As soon as they landed, Yunlu greeted him and ran off happily. Seeing this, Zhou Donghuang shook his head with a smile, but it was understandable. After all, Yunlu was just a child, and a child who had been stifled in the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Young Master Donghuang, you're finally here. The person in charge of the black market, the third elder of the Xinguang sect, Tuaku, could not help but heave a sigh of relief when he saw Zhou Donghuang again. But at the same time he faintly noticed something. This time when he saw this young man again, the young man's aura was even sharper. His entire person was like a half-unsheathed sharp sword. Just by standing in front of him, he felt an indescribable pressure. 2 years ago he was only 20 years old and he was already able to defeat me. 2 years later, his ability must be even stronger. I just don't know how strong he has become. Tuaku's heart trembled. Now Zhou Donghuang's background were no longer a secret to the Valley of the Medicine Masters. Zhou Donghuang nodded lightly and then glanced at Tuaku casually. Have you gathered all the materials I wanted? I have long since prepared them. Tuaku nodded hurriedly and at the same time he handed a storage ring to Zhou Donghuang. Young Master Donghuang, the materials you wanted are all inside. Prepare a quiet room for me. As Zhou Donghuang spoke, Tuaku immediately gave up his room to Zhou Donghuang and went outside to wait. At the same time, there was a look of anticipation in his eyes. This young man, could he really forge a spirit weapon himself? Inside the room, after Tuaku had left, Zhou Donghuang took out his own spirit weapon, the folding fan. Then he took out the pile of materials that Tuaku had given him, and took out a portion of the most precious materials, and began to forge a weapon. But he did not forge the spirit weapon that he had promised to forge for the Divine Light sect. Instead he reforged his own superior-grade spirit weapon, the folding fan. Initially he had asked the Divine Light sect to gather materials, and among them the most precious portion of the materials was to be used to upgrade his own spirit weapon. With these materials, his spirit weapon could be upgraded from a superior-grade spirit weapon to a supreme-grade spirit weapon. The amplification effect would also double from 60% to a full 40% increase. After spending 2 hours upgrading his own spirit weapon, the folding fan, Zhou Donghuang used the remaining materials to forge a spirit weapon for the Divine Light sect. In an even shorter amount of time he had forged a sword. The body of the sword was like jade, sparkling and translucent, and it emanated a sharp aura. Looking closely, the surface of the sword was covered with countless complicated patterns, which were carved and arranged by Zhou Donghuang. As long as the inner yuan of a primal core adept was injected into it, it could be activated. And this was also the principle behind how a spirit weapon could increase the power of inner yuan. Done. Tuaku had originally thought that he would have to wait a few days and nights, but he did not expect that in less than 4 hours, the young man would push open the door and come out, handing him a transparent jade sword that was 3 feet long. He tested it and immediately confirmed that it was a genuine spirit weapon. Because of this, Tuaku could not help but be stunned. He really forged it himself? It was not that Tuaku did not think that this spirit weapon was ready-made, and was not forged by the young man himself. The young man was just deliberately mystifying things. But, on second thought, there was no need at all. I am preparing to go to the Divine Light sect. As Tuaku recovered his wits and looked at Zhou Donghuang in shock, Zhou Donghuang spoke with an unquestionable tone. Tuaku was taken aback at first, but he hurriedly responded, Young Master Donghuang, if you wish to come to our Divine Light sect, we will naturally welcome you with open arms. The sect leader has long wanted to meet you, the unprecedented genius of our Ziyun planet. But, before that I would like to ask you something. At this point, Tuaku looked carefully at Zhou Donghuang, as if he wanted to say something. Speak. As Zhou Donghuang spoke again, Tuaku took a deep breath and said with some apprehension, Our Divine Light sect's 10th elder Lin Hantian once went to young Master Donghuang's hometown, but it was then that he completely disappeared. I wonder if you have seen him? Faced with Tuaku's apprehension, Just as Zhou Donghuang was about to answer him, he felt a sudden vibration in his chest. It was the Mother Jade token that corresponded to the Child Jade token in his sister Yunlu's hand. After the vibration there was a soft crack and it cracked in his chest. Hearing this sound, Tuaku was shocked. And at this moment Tuaku saw that the young man's face had suddenly turned cold, as if covered with a layer of frost. This was the first time he had seen the young man's face fluctuate so much. In the past, when he saw the young man, no matter what, the young man had always been calm and unperturbed. Even when the Golden Essence Elders of the Divine Light sect had come, the young man's face had not changed at all. But now he could clearly feel the cold emanating from the young man's body, causing the temperature of the entire room to drop by several degrees. Whoosh. In the next moment, there was a slight sound of wind, and Tuaku only saw a flash of white before the young man in the snow-white robe completely disappeared, causing his pupils to shrink uncontrollably. So fast. This speed was so fast that he could not react at all. 2 years ago, he could not have had such speed. Although the young man had been very strong 2 years ago, Tuaku was sure that he could not have had such speed 2 years ago. Yun Tai-in. Speaking of which, Zhou Donghuang and Su Imo had stayed in this inn for a long time. Currently, in a large courtyard in the inner courtyard of the Cloud Platform Inn, a middle-aged man dressed in a grayish-white robe was sitting in front of a stone table. His eyes were shining as he stared at a little girl who was about 8 or 9 years old standing there. "Little girl, since you don't have a master, you should become my disciple. With your talent, come under my tutelage. I guarantee that you will be able to attain the primal core stage before 15? No, 13 years old." The middle-aged man's words were persuasive and patient. He had never imagined that after leaving the Xinguang sect and coming to the capital of the Xinguang Empire, he would meet such a good seedling. She looked like she was not even 10 years old, but she was already an ultimate Khanate stage adept, and it was obvious that she was a little girl who had not seen the world. Otherwise, she would not have appeared so curious about everything in the streets and alleys of the capital of the Xinguang Empire. Such a good seedling, her future was limitless. If she could marry his son, it would be a blessing to his descendants. He had also wondered if this lass had a powerful background. Even if she was not a disciple of one of the 4 great sects of Ziyun, could she be the disciple of some reclusive master? But she had clearly told him that she did not have a master and did not know what it meant to have a master. "Little sister, my father does not accept disciples easily. It is your good fortune to be able to be under his tutelage." Beside the middle-aged man stood a young boy of about 12 or 13 years old, with an innate arrogance between his brows. "Who are you calling little sister?" Yunlu put her hands on her hips and glared at the young boy. "Little brat, how old are you this year and you dare to call me little sister? You should call me big sister. I Yunlu am already 14 this year." End of this chapter. Chapter 191. You? 14 years old? The youth looked Yunlu up and down, his face full of disbelief. This little girl looked at most 8 or 9 years old, yet she said she was already 14 and wanted him to call her sister? Did she think he was stupid? "Girl, I am the 12th elder of the Divine Light sect, Xinyan. My father is the 6th elder of the Divine Light sect, Tua Kong. If you become my disciple and then enter the Divine Light sect, you will immediately become a proud daughter of the Divine Light sect and enjoy the best treatment in the sect." The middle-aged man smiled at Yunlu. Xinyan was the 12th elder of the Divine Light sect, a mid-primal core adept. His father was the 6th elder of the Divine Light sect, Tua Kong, a late primal core adept. The Yun Tai-in he was in now was one of his father's businesses. Today he had seen the girl in front of him meet injustice and stand up for justice, displaying her Khanate level of practice. He was stunned. A little girl who looked less than 10 years old was an Khanate level adept? Was this a joke? This had completely overturned everything he knew. Even the mysterious young man named Zhou Donghuang, whom he had heard about a year ago, might not have had such practice at this age? At that time, Xinyan had immediately approached Yunlu, subconsciously thinking that even if Yunlu was not a disciple of one of the 4 great sects of Ziyun, there must be a hidden master behind her. But when he probed, she said that she did not have a master and did not know what a master was. In that instant, he had been hot-headed and taken the girl back to the Yun Tai-in to see if he could take her in as a disciple. In the future, if his son could marry this girl, not only would they be closer, but they would also have the hope of ascending to the top of the Divine Light sect. A Khanate-level adept who was not even 10 years old, would one day enter the Dharma stage? Divine Light sect? When she had been taken to the Yuntai Inn by the middle-aged man, Yunlu had panicked and did not know what to do. She had been so scared that she had crushed the jade tablet her brother had given her, but then she had completely calmed down, because she knew that her brother would definitely not let anything happen to her. Now, hearing Xinyan's words, she frowned slightly. Brother told me that on this trip to the Xinguang Empire, we would also go to the Divine Light Sect. You are from the Divine Light Sect? As she spoke, Yunlu's eyes lit up. Brother? Hearing Yunlu's words, Xinyan was taken aback. Only then did he realize that he had been a little too anxious earlier. When the girl said that she didn't have a teacher and didn't know what a master was, he didn't even ask her if she had any relatives by her side. At that moment, Xinyan seemed to have lost his mind. Because, in his eyes, Yunlu was like a peerless treasure. He didn't want this treasure to be discovered by others even for a moment. Therefore he immediately abducted him back. While Xinyan was still in a daze, Yunlu had already raised her head to look at the sky behind Xinyan and his son. She waved excitedly at the young man hovering in the air. Big brother, I'm here. Whoosh. In that instant, Xinyan's expression changed drastically. At the same time he broke out in a cold sweat. Is there someone behind him? He actually didn't notice? Xinyan hurriedly got up from his seat and turned around. Only then did he realize that there was a figure in a snow-white robe descending from the sky. The figure was surrounded by a milky white inner yuan. It was a mid-primal core adept just like him. Most importantly, this white-robed handsome young man with an otherworldly aura looked very young, at most 20 years old. You little girl, I thought something had happened. Zhou Donghuang descended from the sky. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Yunlu and stroked her little head affectionately. Just now, when Yunlu had crushed the jade pendant, he had thought that his sister had met with some danger. When he came over, he realized that his sister was not in any danger. It was just that someone had taken a liking to his sister's talent and wanted to take her in as a disciple. Big brother, I was really scared just now. I thought this uncle was going to do something bad to me. Yunlu giggled and stuck out her tongue playfully. Hearing Yunlu's words, Xinyan's mouth twitched involuntarily. This little girl, wasn't she thinking too much? He was going to do something bad to her? Xinyan was not a pedophile. It's good that you're all right. Zhou Donghuang smiled warmly. Big brother has settled the matter here. Next, I'll take you to the Divine Light Sect. Sure. Yunlu nodded excitedly. At the same time, she did not forget to look at Xinyan and his son. She called out to them, Hey, uncle, little brother, aren't you from the Divine Light Sect? Do you want to follow us to the Divine Light Sect? Yunlu knew that Zhou Donghuang had never been to the Divine Light Sect before, so she greeted Xinyan now to let him lead the way. Zhou Donghuang did not stop her. He was willing to come because he wanted the person in charge of the black market, the third elder of the Divine Light Sect, Tuaku, to lead the way. If there was someone else to lead the way, there would be no need to look for Tuaku. No problem. Xinyan agreed readily. He was now very curious about this pair of siblings in front of him. The elder brother looked to be at most 20 years old, but was already a mid-primal core adept. The younger sister, who was no more than 10 years old, was already an ultimate Khanate adept. Just who were they? Yong, are you staying at Yuntai Inn or are you returning to the Divine Light Sect with me? Xinyan asked the youth beside him. Father, I'll go with you. The youth was Xinyan's only son, Qin Yong. His gaze never left Yunlu, and his young face flushed from time to time. When Zhou Donghuang realized this, he was speechless. This kid, could it be that he had fallen for Xiaolu? Little brother, how should I address you? After the golden-crowned eagle, Little Gold, carried Zhou Donghuang and the others away from the capital of the Xinguang Empire, Xinyan could not suppress his curiosity and asked Zhou Donghuang, who was sitting cross-legged nearby. Zhou Donghuang. Zhou Donghuang replied casually. Zhou Donghuang. Just as Zhou Donghuang finished speaking, Xinyan could not help but be stunned. After a while, he recovered and smiled bitterly as he shook his head. I should have known, on the planet of Ziyun, to have such a level of practice at such a young age. Besides you, who else could it be? You know me? Zhou Donghuang raised an eyebrow. Brother Donghuang. Xinyan sighed. Nowadays in our Divine Light Sect, except for a few disciples who are more uninformed, basically everyone knows you, especially when you battled with the third elder and defeated him. When the news got back, it shocked everyone who heard it. As Xinyan sighed, the shock in his eyes did not fade for a long time. Brother Donghuang. All of a sudden, Xinyan seemed to have thought of something and his face turned solemn. In the past, my father, the 5th elder, and the 8th elder went to your hometown and found out that the last time the 10th elder Lin Hantian was seen was there. Now, many people suspect that Lin Hantian has already died at your hands? Yes, he died at my hands. Zhou Donghuang spoke openly, his face calm and collected. You killed the 10th elder? Qin Yang's eyes widened as he stared at Zhou Donghuang as if he had seen a ghost. Although he was only 12 years old, he knew the 10th elder's position in the Valley of the Medicine Masters, and he also knew that Lin Hantian's grandfather was one of the 3 golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect. However, a child was still a child. Although he was shocked, there was a hint of admiration in the depths of his eyes. What was an idol? This was an idol. Not only had he killed Lin Hantian, but he had also admitted to it so openly, completely disregarding the golden essence adept of the Divine Light sect. Hiss. As for Qin Yan, after being shocked by Zhou Donghuang's response for a moment, he drew in a long, cold breath. His eyes flashed a few times and he could not help but laugh bitterly. Brother Donghuang, you've gotten yourself into big trouble. Do you know? Lin Hantian is not just the 10th elder of our Divine Light sect. His grandfather, Lin Ju, is one of the 3 golden essence adepts of our Divine Light sect. I'm afraid Elder Lin Ju will not let this matter rest. Qin Yan had thought that after he said this, the young man in front of him would have some reservations. But he never expected that the young man would just reply with an indifferent and then take the initiative to ask, Lin Hantian is dead. Apart from Lin Ju, who else would not let the matter rest? As Zhou Donghuang asked this, a murderous glint flashed in the depths of his eyes. Before he left the Ziyun planet, he had to eliminate all threats to his family while they were still in the cradle. Whoever stuck their head out would die. Elder Lin Ju will definitely have the most intense reaction, and there are also his disciples. Qin Yan did not know why Zhou Donghuang had suddenly asked this, but he answered him anyway. Zhou Donghuang nodded. Brother Donghuang, why have you come to our Divine Light sect this time? Or are you just going for a stroll like you said? Qin Yan asked. I had originally only intended to see the leader of your Divine Light sect, but now I have other things to do, Zhou Donghuang said lightly. It was only when they reached the Divine Light sect that Qin Yan knew what the young man in front of him wanted to do. Help me take care of Xiao Lu. As soon as they reached the Divine Light sect's Divine Light Peak, Zhou Donghuang greeted Qin Yan and flew directly into the air, arriving in the sky above the Divine Light Peak in the blink of an eye. Before Qin Yan, the 12th elder of the Divine Light sect, could react, Zhou Donghuang's voice, imbued with inner yuan, spread throughout the Divine Light sect. I was the one who killed Lin Hantian. Anyone who wants to avenge him, come out now. As soon as Zhou Donghuang's words reached Qin Yan's ears, Qin Yan's scalp went numb, and he felt a chill run up his spine from the soles of his feet to his head, causing him to tremble in fear. My God! Was this Zhou Donghuang crazy? This was the first time Qin Yan had seen such a fearless person, and it was a young man who looked at most 20 years of age. Did he not know that he was provoking the entire Divine Light sect? If it had been in private, even if Zhou Donghuang had admitted that he had killed Lin Hantian, Lin Ju and the Divine Light sect would not have dared to act rashly because of Zhou Donghuang's powerful background. But now Zhou Donghuang's words had forced Lin Ju and the Divine Light sect into a dead end. End of this chapter. Chapter 192. Within the Divine Light sect, Zhou Donghuang's words had caused an unprecedented uproar. Under such circumstances, if the Divine Light sect did not do something, how could they establish themselves in Ziyun in the future? Today, if the Divine Light sect cowered and did not do anything, they would be laughed at by the other 4 major sects of Ziyun. This is Zhou Donghuang's voice. Although it had been 2 years as one of the 3 golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect, the Divine Light sect's right-hand man Ci Xian could still recognize the owner of that voice. It was the young man he had met in the black market, Zhou Donghuang. His power? Could it be that he is already so strong that he is not afraid of the 3 of us? Ci Xian's expression was solemn. This was the thought that came to his mind. 2 years ago he had the power to defeat the 3rd elder of the Divine Light sect, Tuaku. After 2 years, his power was naturally stronger than before. Even if the other party had the power to defeat him now, he would not doubt it. However, defeating him alone and defeating the 3 golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect were 2 completely different concepts. With his power standing in Zhou Donghuang's position, facing the 3 golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect, he would definitely not be able to last more than 3 breaths. Furthermore, now that he and his senior both had spirit weapons, once they joined forces, their power would be incomparable to before. Very quickly, the leader of the Divine Light sect, Tuajin, came to find them. With a serious expression, he said to Cai Xian, "Uncle Cai Xian, he has come with ill intentions. I hope that you and Master will support the Grand Elder and protect the dignity of the Divine Light sect." Tuajin's master was the left guardian of the Divine Light sect, Cai Yun. Cai Yun was also Cai Xian's senior, one of the 3 golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect, and the strongest in the sect. Cai Yun was already close to 280 years old, and if he did not enter the Dharma stage in the next 20 years, his life would come to an end. Because of this, in recent years, Cai Yun rarely appeared in front of people and he was elusive. However, today's matter concerned the dignity of the Divine Light sect, and even if Tuajin did not want to disturb his master's practice, he had no choice but to do so. "Uncle Cai Xian, you have seen Zhou Donghuang and even talked to him? That voice just now, was it him?" Although Tuajin already had his own guesses, he still couldn't help but ask. "Yes." Cai Xian nodded. In the sky above Divine Light Peak, all the elders and disciples of the Primal Core stage and above who were in the Divine Light sect's encampment had all risen into the air and were standing in mid-air, looking at the figure in the distance, dressed in robes whiter than snow. "It's him? He said he killed the 10th elder." Furthermore, he even said that he was waiting for the Divine Light sect to come out and avenge the 10th elder? A group of elders and disciples of the Divine Light sect stared at the young man in white in the distance in shock. Where does his confidence come from? This young man looks to be at most 20 years of age, he's already a mid-primal core adept. Could he be that Zhou Donghuang? Just as the group of elders and disciples of the Divine Light sect were deep in discussion, a voice suddenly rang out, interrupting their discussion. "The Grand Elder is here. The Grand Elder of the Divine Light sect. Lin Ju." He was also one of the 3 golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect. Most importantly, Lin Ju was the grandfather of the 10th elder of the Divine Light sect, Lin Hantian. Lin Hantian was the only descendant of Lin Ju. Because of this, Lin Ju valued Lin Hantian, to a certain extent, even more than himself. "It's you who killed my grandson Lin Hantian?" Lin Ju was an old man dressed in a long gray robe. His white hair was tied up behind him and his figure was thin. As he stood there, he gave off a sage-like aura. However, now, as Lin Ju and Zhou Donghuang faced off, the look he gave Zhou Donghuang was unusually fierce, as if he was about to devour him. "Master." Without waiting for Zhou Donghuang to respond, 2 figures emerged from the crowd and appeared behind Lin Ju. After bowing respectfully to Lin Ju, they stared at Zhou Donghuang fiercely. These were also 2 old men. At first glance, they did not look any younger than Lin Ju. They were both disciples of Lin Ju, and they were also late Primal Core elders of the Divine Light sect. "Yes." Zhou Donghuang glanced at Lin Ju casually and acknowledged his words. Suddenly, Lin Ju's face turned red, and his gray robe fluttered despite the absence of wind. The golden inner yuan that surrounded his body shone even brighter and expanded. "Young fellow, since you are so eager to die, I will grant you your wish." At this moment, Lin Ju had completely forgotten the advice of the guardian of the right, Cai Xian, and completely cast aside the possibility of Zhou Donghuang's background. Now he only had one thought in his mind: kill Zhou Donghuang and avenge his grandson Lin Hantian. At the very most, after killing Zhou Donghuang, he would leave the Ziyun planet and go to another planet. He really did not believe that the powerful person behind Zhou Donghuang would be able to find him in the vast universe. Boom. Almost as soon as Lin Ju finished speaking, it was as if a clap of thunder had sounded out of nowhere, shaking the eardrums of the elders and disciples of the Divine Light sect who were watching from afar. It was the golden inner yuan that surrounded Lin Ju's body, and there was a deafening explosion. Then, like a bolt of golden lightning, he flew towards Zhou Donghuang. "Master, I'm here to help you. You dare to kill Hantian, you will die today." As Lin Ju moved to attack Zhou Donghuang, his 2 disciples followed behind him like shadows, arrogant. At that moment, all the onlookers stared unblinkingly at Zhou Donghuang. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, it was not until Lin Ju had crossed more than half the distance and was not far from Zhou Donghuang that the expressionless Zhou Donghuang's lips finally curled into a smile. A mocking smile appeared on his face. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Zhou Donghuang's figure flashed, leaving an afterimage where he had been standing. At the same time, a series of afterimages appeared. Lin Ju's attack landed on Zhou Donghuang's afterimage, but it missed. Not good. Lin Ju had never imagined that Zhou Donghuang's speed would be so fast. After his attack missed, his expression changed drastically, and he hurriedly shouted, "Be careful." As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Ju hurriedly turned around, intending to save his two disciples. However, the moment he turned around, he clearly saw that there was someone behind him. Zhou Donghuang's afterimages flashed past his two disciples, and as he passed, their heads flew into the air. Zhou Donghuang's speed was far faster than the two of them, and as he passed by them, he struck out with his palm and chopped off their heads. As the heads of Lin Ju's two disciples flew into the air, they still maintained their expressions of righteous indignation. Evidently, they did not even have time to react before they were killed by Zhou Donghuang. Looking at the young man in white who had killed the two late primal core elders of the Divine Light sect, as if nothing had happened, the crowd of elders and disciples of the Divine Light sect all sucked in a breath of cold air, their eyes filled with fear and panic. This young man who looked to be at most 20 years of age actually had such great power? This level of power could only be achieved by an ultimate primal core adept, right? Father, isn't Big Brother Donghuang too powerful? On the back of the golden-crowned eagle Little Gold, Qin Yong looked at the young man in white who stood there like a god, and the admiration in his eyes deepened. He recognized the two old men. They were the 4th and 9th elders of the Divine Light sect, both late primal core adepts. Among them, the 4th elder's power was even stronger than his grandfather, the 4th elder of the Divine Light sect, Tua Kong. Yong, now that Brother Donghuang is an enemy of the Divine Light sect, if you call him Big Brother Donghuang, be careful lest others hear it and use it against you. Qin Yong said softly to his son, deeply afraid that his son's words would cause others to be unhappy. Didn't you go to the capital? Why are you back? At some point, an old monk in a silver robe with a strong build and fierce eyes had landed on Little Gold's back. Just as Little Gold realized that this stranger had landed on his back, he was furious and was about to explode. Grandfather. Father. The way Qin Yong and Qin Yan addressed the newcomer made him suppress his anger. Along the way he had a good impression of the Qin father and son, and now he naturally had to give them face. The newcomer was the 6th elder of the Divine Light sect, Tua Kong. His expression was serious as he looked at the young man in white, who was constantly changing his body so that Lin Ju could not even touch him. This Zhou Donghuang's power is stronger than distinguished elders. He is toying with distinguished elder. After Lin Ju realized that his two disciples had been killed by Zhou Donghuang, he was furious and attacked Zhou Donghuang again. However, Zhou Donghuang's body moved so quickly that Lin Ju, a golden essence adept, could not even touch the hem of his clothes. At this moment, the inner yuan that emanated from Zhou Donghuang's body was no longer milky white, but bright silver. How did he do it? Isn't he a mid-primal core adept? At this moment, not only did Qin Yan notice the change in Zhou Donghuang's inner yuan, but the group of Divine Light sect elders and disciples who were watching also noticed the change in Zhou Donghuang's inner yuan. At the beginning, when Zhou Donghuang stood there and had not made a move, the inner yuan around him was clearly the milky white inner yuan of a mid-primal core adept. But now, after dodging Lin Ju's attack and killing Lin Ju's two disciples, the inner yuan around him had become bright silver. Now, because Zhou Donghuang's body was surrounded by too much silver inner yuan, it was as if his entire body was covered in a layer of silver flames. The inner yuan of a late primal core adept can be so thick? No wonder 4th elder and 8th elder were killed by him in a second. His inner yuan is at least 3 times thicker than that of an average silver essence adept. The group of Divine Light sect elders and disciples looked at Zhou Donghuang, stunned. They felt that Zhou Donghuang had completely overturned their understanding of silver essence adepts. End of this chapter. Chapter 193. Do you only know how to run? Lin Ju was exasperated because he couldn't keep up with his opponent's speed. Of course, he also knew in his heart that based on the speed that his opponent was displaying, if they were to fight head-on, he would most likely be no match for him. Speed also depended on true essence. The other party's speed was faster than his, which meant that the other party's true essence was thicker than his. Escape. Hearing Lin Ju's words, Zhou Donghuang immediately stopped in his tracks. Facing Lin Ju's ferocious attack, he casually blocked it. His expression was calm and it was obvious that he did not feel any pressure. No matter how many times Lin Ju attacked, even using all his strength, Zhou Donghuang still managed to stop him. Lin Ju was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Where did this little bastard come from? He was clearly just a silver core cultivator, so why was his quintessential essence so powerful that it was even stronger than a golden core cultivator like him? If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, who would dare believe that a golden core cultivator would be helpless against a silver core cultivator? Some of the Divine Light sect disciples laughed bitterly. Where did this young man come from? In the Ziyun planet there is such a monster? Many people were shocked by Zhou Donghuang's strength. From the beginning to the end he has only been defending and dodging. Up until now he has not made a move against the Supreme Elder. What is the meaning of this? Are you disdainful? If you didn't mention it I wouldn't have noticed it. It seems like he really hasn't made a move against the Grand Elder. Soon, many people realized that Zhou Donghuang had not attacked Lin Ju. Father, big brother Donghuang, why isn't he making a move? Xin Yong could not help but ask Xin Yan. Before Xin Yan could speak, Tua Kong looked at Xin Yong in shock. Yong, are you, call this Zhou Donghuang big brother? You know him? Tua Kong was dumbfounded. His grandson knew Zhou Donghuang? Father, we have only just met brother Donghuang. Xin Yan smiled awkwardly. Speaking of which, I was the one who brought him to the Divine Light sect. Father, I have not introduced you. This is brother Donghuang's sister, Lady Yunlu. As for this flying beast, it's little gold, brother Donghuang's. Just as Qin Yan introduced Yunlu to Tua Kong and was about to introduce the golden-crowned eagle to little gold, he realized that he did not know how to introduce it. Brother. I'm young master's brother. Little gold quickly helped Xin Yan. Tua Kong felt a little dizzy. Zhou Donghuang was brought to the Divine Light sect by his son? Wasn't this inviting a wolf into the house? Furthermore, Zhou Donghuang had only known his son for a short period of time, and he was already at ease leaving his sister by his son's side. Was he not afraid that the Divine Light sect would use his sister to threaten him? Thinking of this, Tua Kong glanced at the white figure in the distance and sighed in his heart, maybe? He's not worried that we would use his sister to threaten him. Zhou Donghuang. Just as Lin Ju's expression grew uglier and uglier, a loud voice rang out from within the Divine Light peak, followed by the sound of 3 people breaking through the air. Everyone looked over and saw 2 old monks in golden robes flying side by side in the air. The leader of the Divine Light sect, Tua Jin, followed obediently behind them. It's the Right Guardian. The Right Guardian is here. The one beside the Right Protector. Could it be the Left Protector? Oh my God. Left Protector, it seems like you haven't appeared in front of people for many years, right? The people who had arrived were the leader of the Divine Light sect, Tua Jin, the Right Guardian Xi Xian, and the Left Guardian Xi Yun. Xi Yun looked even older than Xi Xian. He was skinny and had a kind face. At first glance, he looked like an ordinary old monk who had 1 foot in the grave. However, the faint golden halo around his body revealed the fact that he was a powerful golden essence adept. Amidst the respectful cries of the Divine Light sect people, Xi Yun, Xi Xian, and Tua Jin finally arrived at the scene of the battle between Zhou Donghuang and Lin Ju. At this time, Lin Ju had already retreated to the side of Xi Yun and the other 2, greeting Xi Yun and Xi Xian. As for Tua Jin, even though he was the leader, Lin Ju only nodded slightly at him. Instead, it was Tua Jin who bowed respectfully to Lin Ju. The one who had just called out Zhou Donghuang's name was Xi Xian. Zhou Donghuang, I never thought that after 2 years, you would already have such power. Not a golden essence adept, but comparable to one. And not an ordinary golden essence adept. What a joke. An ordinary golden essence adept would be able to toy with a golden essence adept like Lin Ju? Since you are all here, all of you come at me together. Zhou Donghuang ignored Xi Xian's words. His gaze first fell on Lin Ju, then on Xi Xian and Xi Yun. The moment he opened his mouth, he directly challenged 3 golden essence adepts. As soon as Zhou Donghuang's voice fell, the entire place fell into a dead silence. No one could have imagined that Zhou Donghuang would say such a thing. He actually wanted to fight 3 golden essence adepts of the Divine Light sect alone? In an instant, the entire place was in an uproar. Crazy. He's crazy. Does he really think that just because he is stronger than Sect Grand Elder, he can fight 3 golden essence adepts of the Divine Light sect alone? Not to mention that Xi Xian is already stronger than Sect Grand Elder. Xi Yun is even stronger than Xi Xian. I heard that he is not far from the Dharma stage. It was not only the elders and disciples of the Divine Light sect who were shocked by Zhou Donghuang's words. Even Tua Kong and Qin Yan felt their scalps go numb. Was this Zhou Donghuang crazy? Although he could easily toy with Sect Grand Elder, the left guardian of the Divine Light Sect, Xia Yun, could do the same. Furthermore, it was the old Xia Yun. The current Xia Yun was definitely much stronger. After all, Xia Yun was focused on breaking through to the Dharma stage. His improvement over the past few decades was definitely not something that Lin Ju could compare to. If only I could be like Big Brother Donghuang in the future, how great would that be? Qin Yang's eyes shone as he stared at the figure in the white robe. Now he looked like a diehard fan looking at his idol. Dream on. Yun Lu scoffed at Qin Yang's words. Big Brother is unique, no one can compare to him. Little Gold, Brother Donghuang is getting ahead of himself. Xia Yun of the Divine Light Sect is no weaker than him. Why don't you go and stop him? Qin Yin said to Little Gold. They are just 3 old fellows with 1 foot in the grave. How can they be a match for my young master? Little Gold scoffed at Qin Yan's words and responded with blind confidence in Zhou Donghuang. Qin Yan was speechless. It looked like it was not only Yun Lu, but even this flying beast had been completely brainwashed by Brother Donghuang. At the same time, hearing Zhou Donghuang's words, Lin Ju's face darkened. Xia Xian's face was filled with anger, and even the kind-looking Xia Yun's eyes flashed with a cold light. Arrogant little brat. Xia Yun flew out to face Zhou Donghuang. However, since you have asked for it, then we will grant you your wish so that you will know that there is always someone better out there. The instant Xia Yun's words left his mouth, Xia Xian and Lin Ju simultaneously flew out and appeared beside Xia Yun, one on the left and one on the right. I will give you 3 breaths of time to prepare your strongest attack. Zhou Donghuang ignored Xia Yun's words and said lightly, otherwise I am afraid that you will not be satisfied with your defeat. Arrogant. Now even if Xia Yun had a good temper, he was enraged. The golden robe on his body swelled, and the golden inner yuan that was originally like stars in the sky suddenly expanded, as if it had turned into a golden flame. Xia Xian and Lin Ju were also enraged, and the golden inner yuan around them raged. At the same time, a 4-foot-long knife appeared in Xia Yun's hand, and an exquisite hill appeared in Xia Xian's hand. As for Lin Ju, he did not take out any weapons. To a primal core adept, other than a spirit weapon, any other weapon would only be a burden, and would not be as useful as an inner yuan weapon. The 3 elders are angry. How can they not be angry? This Zhou Donghuang is too arrogant. I only hope that he has the ability to be arrogant. Otherwise he may die here today. Most of the elders and disciples of the Divine Light Sect did not think that Zhou Donghuang would be a match for the 3 Golden Essence Elders of the Divine Light Sect. On the planet of Ziyun, the 3 Golden Essence Elders of the Divine Light Sect were enough to defeat anyone. Attack. Following Xia Yun's command, not only did he move, the inner yuan of the 4-foot-long knife in his hand surged, transforming into a sharp blade that swept towards Zhou Donghuang. Even Xia Xian and Lin Ju followed closely. Bus, 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 bus. Xia Yun attacked, and the knife and sword followed him like a shadow, rushing towards Zhou Donghuang. Boom, kaboom. Xia Xian attacked, and the exquisite hill in his hand flew up into the sky, descending towards Zhou Donghuang's head. Swoosh. The inner yuan in Lin Ju's hand condensed into a sword, and the tip of the sword pierced through the air, heading straight for Zhou Donghuang's brow, as if he wanted to kill Zhou Donghuang in one blow. The 3 Golden Essence Elders of the Divine Light Sect attacked together. Whether it was Xia Yun or Xia Xian, they both used spirit weapons. Although Lin Ju did not use a spirit weapon, when he joined forces with Xia Yun and Xia Xian, he was able to use 120% of his power, which was completely different from before. He had used his full power. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. Everyone present stared unblinkingly at the scene in front of them, regardless of whether they could see the movements of the 3 Golden Essence Adepts clearly or not. The former watched the technique, the latter watched the show. If he can block the combined attack of the 3 elders, as long as there is no Dharma adept on the planet of Ziyun, he will always be the top martial artist on the planet of Ziyun. Although he felt that the sudden thought in his mind was a little crazy, Qin Yan could not help but look forward to it. This was also what Qin Yan was thinking, and the others of the Divine Light Sect did not know. Otherwise their spittle would drown Qin Yan's saliva. You, Qin Yan, are the 12th elder of the Divine Light Sect. Is it really okay for you to do this? Your father is the 6th elder of the Divine Light Sect. Is it really okay for you to do this? And your son is also protected by the Divine Light Sect. Is it really okay for you to do this? End of chapter. Chapter 194. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd. Facing the three golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect, a folding fan appeared in Zhou Donghuang's hand. It was the spirit weapon that he had just taken out from his space ring. Furthermore, it was an ultimate primal core spirit weapon. It was also the most powerful spirit weapon among all the primal core spirit weapons. Whoosh! Zhou Donghuang raised his hand and waved the folding fan in his hand. His speed was neither fast nor slow, and the elders and disciples of the Divine Light sect were speechless. Was this guy trying to use this to fight against the three golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect? Now, anyone with a discerning eye could see that the three golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect had no intention of holding back. After all, the Grand Elder of the Divine Light sect had just been defeated by the other party. Facing such a person, if they held back, it was very likely that they would give the other party an opportunity to take advantage of them, and they might even be doomed. However, in the next moment they were so shocked that their eyes widened. They saw that when the folding fan in Zhou Donghuang's hand was fanned to the extreme, a vast, unparalleled silver inner yuan suddenly appeared. This silver inner yuan was majestic and vast, like silver seawater, stirring up huge waves as it swept towards the three golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect. Most importantly, this silver inner yuan not only looked vast and majestic, but the aura it emitted was also very condensed, and it did not seem like it was intentionally dispersed. An ordinary silver essence adept could disperse his inner yuan to this extent. However, after the inner yuan was dispersed to this extent, even an early primal core adept would be able to remain unscathed under the cover of this inner yuan. However, now that Zhou Donghuang was fanning, the density of the silver inner yuan that swept out was so high that it was no weaker than the inner yuan of a silver essence adept at its maximum. Whoosh, whoosh. The silver inner yuan seemed to cover the sky as it swept out with awe-inspiring power, as if thousands of soldiers and horses were galloping past, menacing. On the other side, three golden inner yuan flew over like meteors, but they seemed to pale in comparison. Three golden essence adepts? As the silver inner yuan rolled out and engulfed the three elders of the Divine Light sect, the corners of Zhou Donghuang's mouth curled up in a playful smile. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the three golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect finally met the silver inner yuan head-on. It was fine before they got close, but once they got close their expressions changed drastically. How could he have so much true essence? Such dense spiritual essence is comparable to the spiritual essence of more than 6 silver core cultivators working together, right? Faced with 6 silver essence adepts, the 3 golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect were naturally not afraid. They could completely defeat them one by one. However, if a person possessed the true essence of 6 silver core cultivators, the combat power they could display was not something 6 silver core cultivators could compare to. In fact, even if 16 silver core cultivators joined forces, they would not be able to match up to this person's combat power. The next moment, the crowd of elders and disciples of the Divine Light sect saw a scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. Although the 3 golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect had their golden inner yuan bursting forth from head to toe, shining with a golden light, in front of the silver inner yuan that was like a rolling wave, they seemed very small. How dare a grain of rice compete with the moon? Zhou Donghuang's calm words reached the ears of everyone present as the silver inner yuan swept out to meet the 3 golden essence elders of the Divine Light sect. The sound was not loud, but it shocked everyone. Bang! The left guardian of the Divine Light sect, Xia Yun, was the first to bear the brunt of the attack, but in the face of the silver inner yuan, he was sent flying the moment he touched it. It was like a small soldier in light armor being sent flying by the charge of a heavily armored cavalry. A mouthful of fresh blood spurted from Xia Yun's mouth as he was sent flying. It was dazzling and piercing to the eyes. Bang! Following closely, the right guardian of the Divine Light sect, Xia Xian, also followed in Xia Yun's footsteps. Not only was the exquisite hill spirit weapon that he had thrown out sent flying, but he himself was also sent flying. Wah! Blood splattered across the sky like red roses falling from the sky. Umph! Just as the people of the Divine Light sect thought that their Grand Elder would also follow in the footsteps of the left and right guardians, a cold snort rang out in their ears. In the next moment many people saw it. The young man in white who was holding a folding fan suddenly shook the folding fan in his hand. In an instant, the silver inner yuan, which was like a raging wave, suddenly retracted and pulled, directly splitting into 2 parts. One part quickly circled to the back of the Grand Elder of the Divine Light sect, Lin Ju, and attacked him from the front and back. No, Lin Ju's old voice rang out in that instant, his voice filled with despair and indignation. And this was the last thing that Lin Ju would say in this world. Boom. Kaboom. The silver inner yuan collided with each other, and Lin Ju's entire body was compressed infinitely, finally exploding into a mist of blood, leaving only a space ring that slowly fell to the ground. The space stone that was used to make the space ring was a very special kind of ore. It was difficult for inner yuan to destroy it, and it could not even change its shape. However, it was not difficult for the samadhi fire, which was formed from the inner yuan, to melt it and shape it into various shapes, but it was also extremely difficult to destroy it. On the 22nd of July 1233 of the Ziyun era, Zhou Donghuang defeated the two Golden Essence Elders of the Divine Light Sect and killed the Grand Elder of the Divine Light Sect, Lin Ju. After this battle, the whole place was dead silent. Gulp. Qin Yin, the 12th Elder of the Divine Light Sect who had invited the wolf into the house, swallowed hard, his eyes round and wide, almost popping out of his head in shock. He had originally thought that his idea just now was already considered crazy, thinking that as long as the young man in front of him could block the combined attack of the three Golden Essence Elders of the Divine Light Sect, he would be able to reach the top of the martial way of Ziyun. It was only at this moment that he realized he had underestimated the young man. The young man had only casually waved the fan in his hand and defeated the two Golden Essence Guardians of the Divine Light Sect. If he had waved the fan again, he would have crushed the Grand Elder of the Divine Light Sect. Absolutely crushed. Crushed as easily as stepping on an ant. Unsurprisingly, when the group of people from the Divine Light Sect recovered from their shock, including the Divine Light Sect leader Tua Jin, they could not help but gasp. When the group of people once again looked at the young man dressed in white, there was only fear in their eyes. There was no other emotion. What kind of demon is this? The late primal core stage is already so nature-defying? He has not even entered the Golden Essence stage, but he is already so nature-defying. When he enters the Golden Essence stage, I'm afraid even a Dharma adept will not be a match for him, right? On the planet of Ziyun, as long as there is no Dharma adept, I'm afraid he will be the top martial artist on the planet of Ziyun, enough to dominate everything. The scene that had just happened was destined to be unforgettable for the primal core adepts of the Divine Light Sect. Is there anyone else who wants to avenge Lin Hantian? Zhou Donghuang stood in the air, the fan in his hand gently waving in front of him. His gaze swept across the people of the Divine Light Sect. Of course, those who want to avenge the three people I just killed can also step forward and avenge them. Faced with Zhou Donghuang's question, the whole place was silent. Many people were secretly cursing Zhou Donghuang for asking the obvious. You can even crush the three strongest Golden Essence adepts of the Divine Light Sect. Who would dare to provoke you? Brother. Yunlu's eyes shone. Although she had confidence in her brother, she did not expect him to be able to crush the three Golden Essence adepts so cleanly. Young master, has he become so strong? The golden-crowned eagle Little Gold swallowed hard. Based on his understanding of his young master, he would never do anything he was not confident of, so he was confident that his young master could handle the three Golden Essence adepts of the Divine Light Sect. However, even though he could handle them, he did not expect his young master to have such terrifying power. He could see it. Just now, if his young master had not shown mercy, not only would the Grand Elder of the Divine Light Sect have died, but the two Divine Light Sect Guardians would also have died. Thank you for showing mercy, sir. After the left guardian of the Divine Light Sect, Xia Yun, caught his breath, even though he had lived for almost 300 years, when he looked at the young man again, he could not help but tremble in fear. At the same time, he hurriedly bowed to the young man to thank him. At the same time, the corner of his mouth turned up in a bitter smile. He, Xia Yun, had been a genius disciple of the Divine Light Sect since he was young, but after practicing for almost 300 years in the end, he could not even be compared to a young man in his early 20s. Someone like him, and he still wanted to enter the Dharma stage? What a fool's dream. What a fool's dream. And at this moment, Xia Yun's rock-solid heart of martial arts began to crack, and there was no possibility of him ever entering the Dharma stage. Thank you for showing mercy. After Xia Xian regained his composure, he smiled bitterly and bowed to the young man to thank him. He had originally thought that he had overestimated the young man. He did not expect that not only had he not overestimated him, the young man was even scarier than he had imagined. Apart from the elders, the rest of you please go back. At the same time, the leader of the Divine Light Sect, Tua Jin, gave the order in a clear voice. As he spoke, the group of early primal core disciples of the Divine Light sect all left. As they left, they all heaved a sigh of relief. It was better not to face such a frightening person if they could avoid him. Although the young man had killed the Grand Elder of the Divine Light sect, Lin Ju, from the fact that he had shown mercy to the two guardians of the Divine Light sect, it was obvious that the young man was not as powerful as him. Thank you for showing mercy. After Xi Xian regained his composure, he also smiled bitterly and bowed to the young man to thank him. He had originally thought that he had overestimated the young man. He did not expect that not only had he not overestimated him, the young man was even more frightening than he had imagined. Apart from the elders, the rest of you please go back. At the same time, the leader of the Divine Light sect, Tua Jin, gave the order in a clear voice. As he spoke, the group of early primal core disciples of the Divine Light sect all left. As they left, they all heaved a sigh of relief. Such a frightening person, if they could avoid facing him, it was better not to. Although the other party had killed the Grand Elder of the Divine Light sect, Lin Ju, from the fact that the other party had shown mercy to the two Divine Light sect guardians, it was obvious that the other party had shown mercy. Baidu search for the UC Book League website to let you experience the latest and fastest chapters, all of which were updated in seconds. Chapter 195. As the leader of the Divine Light sect, Tua Jin was far more meticulous than the average person. If the young man in front of him had only come to kill those who wanted to avenge Lin Hantian, he would have killed Lin Ju long ago after he had killed the two disciples of Lin Ju. Why bother with Lin Ju? With his strength, killing Lin Ju would have been a piece of cake. However, he had waited until the other two Golden Essence Elders of the Divine Light sect had arrived before he had appeared, and he had wanted to fight 1 against 3, and in the end he had only killed Lin Ju. What did this mean? It meant that the young man had intended to fight the 3 Golden Essence Elders of the Divine Light sect in front of them, completely to intimidate the Divine Light sect. The young man was definitely not just here to kill them. Sir, you have come to the Divine Light sect, not just to see who wants to avenge Lin Hantian, right? Hearing their leader's question to Zhou Donghuang, the group of senior members of the Divine Light sect present, including the left and right guardians of the Divine Light sect, all turned to look at Zhou Donghuang. Zhou Donghuang nodded lightly in response to Tua Jin's question. To see who wants to avenge Lin Hantian was just a spur-of-the-moment idea. I have come to the Divine Light sect today to discuss something with you, said Zhou Donghuang. Zhou Donghuang said directly. Dare I ask what it is? Seeing the strength of the young man in front of him, Tua Jin did not dare to put on airs, but instead lowered his stance and asked respectfully. The Divine Light sect will move away from this spirit stone lode. I want this place. Zhou Donghuang said lightly. The Xinguang Peak, where the Xinguang sect was based, was the location of the largest spirit stone vein on the planet of Ziyun. It was precisely because of this that the founder of the Xinguang sect had chosen to establish his sect here and establish his sect. This time, Zhou Donghuang had come to the Divine Light sect to ask for this Xinguang Peak. Before leaving the planet of Ziyun, he wanted to find the best place for his family to live. And Xinguang Peak was obviously the best place to do so. Following Zhou Donghuang's words, the entire place fell silent again. After a while, Tua Jin regained his senses and looked angrily at Zhou Donghuang. In a trembling voice he asked, Sir, you must be joking? I, Zhou Donghuang, have no interest in joking with you. Zhou Donghuang spoke again and his gaze sharpened in an instant. This was proof of his determination. In that instant, everyone including Tua Jin, the leader of the Divine Light sect, and the 6th elder of the Divine Light sect, Tua Kong, and the 12th elder of the Divine Light sect turned pale. The young man in front of them actually wanted the entire Divine Light sect to move away from the Divine Light Peak and give up the Divine Light Peak, where the Divine Light sect had been established for 1,000 years, to him? Luoha Galaxy. Planet Tianxian. Grandma Father, there's no need to send us off. In the air above the Luo clan residence, a beautiful young woman in a long dress stood beside an ordinary-looking woman in black robes. She had a cold expression, and she was speaking to an old woman and a middle-aged man. The old woman was dressed in a loose green robe and she was skinny. As she looked at the young lady, her eyes were filled with reluctance. Her mouth moved a few times as if she wanted to say something, but in the end she did not. Qinghan, be careful out there. Don't be careless. The middle-aged man was dressed in a long silver robe. His face was like jade and he was handsome and elegant. He was the current leader of the Luo family, Luo Wuxian. Grandma, father, once I enter the sect and familiarize myself with the environment, I will find some time to come back. Luo Qinghan nodded at the old woman and the middle-aged man, then turned to the woman beside her and said respectfully, "Senior, I can leave now." The woman nodded, then brought Luo Qinghan and the others behind her and flew out of the Luo family household. Luo Qinghan did not turn back. She was afraid that if she turned back and saw her grandma, she would regret her decision and stay. However, if she stayed on the Tianshan planet, her future training would be limited, and she would not be able to go further. A year ago, a group of adepts from a galaxy called the Hunglio Galaxy descended on the Tianshan planet. They claimed to be from the Hunglio Galaxy, and they represented the top sects of the Hunglio Galaxy in recruiting disciples. They were recruiting disciples for the top sects of the Hunglio Galaxy, and they had only one requirement: an ultimate primal core adept who was less than 30 years old, or a late primal core adept who was less than 25 years old. Of course, everything was voluntary. As long as one met the requirements, one could sign up voluntarily, and when it was time to leave, someone would personally come to take them away to the Hunglio Galaxy. The Tianshan planet is too small and the Luoha Galaxy is too small. The Tianshan planet had not produced a primordial soul adept for 1,000 years, and the Tianshan planet was one of the most resource-rich planets in the Luoha Galaxy. If one did not leave the Luoha Galaxy, even if one was talented, it would be difficult to enter the primordial soul stage and become a primordial soul adept. Now, although there were primordial soul adepts in the Luoha Galaxy, they were extremely rare. And in the Hunglio Galaxy, ordinary primordial soul adepts were as common as dogs, and stronger primordial soul adepts were everywhere, and there were even quite a few top primordial soul adepts. In the top sects of the Hunglio Galaxy, ordinary primordial soul adepts could not even become elders. And in the Luoha Galaxy, even the most ordinary primordial soul adept was a leader high above the rest of the galaxy. Precisely because of this, Luo Qinghan wanted to use this opportunity to leave the Luoha Galaxy while she was still young. The woman who had received Luo Qinghan and the others was only one of the group of adepts from the Hunglio Galaxy. There were many others who had also received many others. Yuan Zheng. After the woman had brought Luo Qinghan and the others to meet up with the other adepts from the Hunglio Galaxy, Luo Qinghan saw a familiar figure behind a middle-aged man dressed in a Taoist robe. The young leader of the Yinzhou sect, Yuan Zheng. Previously, her close friend He Meng had drugged her with the intention of selling her to this Yuan Zheng. Luckily, she had managed to escape, or else her entire life would have been ruined by this person. Therefore, now that she saw Yuan Zheng, Luo Qinghan's face was instantly covered with a layer of frost, and a murderous look flashed in the depths of her eyes. When Luo Qinghan saw Yuan Zheng also noticed her. His eyes lit up and he took the initiative to approach her. "Miss Luo, are you also planning to go to the Hunglio Galaxy?" However, Luo Qinghan completely ignored Yuan Zheng. Although she was confident that her current abilities were no weaker than Yuan Zheng's, it was still extremely difficult for her to kill him. Furthermore, even if she had the ability to kill Yuan Zheng now, she could not do it. Once she did, the group of adepts from the Hunglio Galaxy would definitely see it as a provocation, and the consequences would be dire. The only thing she could do now was to ignore Yuan Zheng. In the future, when she became stronger and surpassed Yuan Zheng, it would not be too late to find a chance to take revenge. "Miss Luo, although there are not many top sects in the Hunglio Galaxy, there are still quite a few. Why don't we join the same sect? That way we can also take care of each other. Isn't that perfect?" Seeing that Luo Qinghan was ignoring him, Yuan Zheng was not only not angry, but instead seemed to be used to it, smiling and licking his lips. Scram. Luo Qinghan frowned and glanced coldly at Yuan Zheng. She spat out a single word, her voice loud and loud, attracting the attention of many. No matter how thick-skinned Yuan Zheng was, he could not help but change his expression when faced with the mocking gazes of a group of people. He looked at Luo Qinghan with a cold look, making Luo Qinghan feel as if she was being stared at by a poisonous snake. "Since Miss Luo does not wish to be disturbed, I shall not disturb you." On the surface, Yuan Zheng was still smiling, as if he could adapt to circumstances and did not take Luo Qinghan's overreaction to heart at all. Of course, this was only on the surface. In his heart, however, Yuan Zheng was secretly cursing, "Luo Qinghan, you better pray that you do not fall into my hands. Otherwise, I will definitely have you first before killing you. Let's go." Very quickly, the group of people met up and left the Tianshan planet, left the Luoha Galaxy, and headed towards the Hunglio Galaxy. Of course, when they left, they did not use their physical bodies to cross the galaxy. First, they used the teleporter to be transported to a planet on the edge of the Luaha galaxy, then boarded a spaceship that looked like a large ship. Using the spaceship as a means of transportation, they left the Luaha galaxy at an extremely fast speed and headed towards the Hunglio galaxy. Due to the limitations of the person who had set up the teleporter in the Luaha galaxy, it could only be used to transport between planets within the Luaha galaxy. If one wanted to leave the Luaha galaxy and head to another galaxy, they could only use the indiscriminate teleporter, but that way no one would know which galaxy they would be transported to. The Tianshan planet. In the boundless galaxy, Luo Qinghan stood on the spaceship, looking at the planet on the edge of the Luaha galaxy that was gradually getting further and further away, finally turning into a small dot of light. Her eyes could not help but reveal a look of reluctance. In all her life, this was the first time she had left the Tianshan planet and left the Luaha galaxy for a long journey. As for the indiscriminate teleportation to the planet called Ziyun, a few years ago, it was a complete accident, and to her, it could not be considered a long journey. Just as the spaceship left the Luaha galaxy, as Luo Qinghan looked away, she could not help but think of a figure. A handsome young man dressed in robes whiter than snow, with an extraordinary aura. The young man who had appeared in her dreams many times in the past, once again appeared in her mind without any warning. Based on his age and level of cultivation even in the Ziyun planet, he was destined to be mediocre. Now he probably has a wife and children, living an ordinary and satisfied life? Luo Qinghan thought to herself. Even she did not know why, every time she thought of this she would feel an inexplicable sense of loss, and it was very strong. It was as if she had lost something very important. Taking a deep breath, Luo Qinghan tried to divert her attention. I wonder, what kind of sect will I join when I reach the Hunglio galaxy? Chapter 196. The Ziyun Grand Banquet was a grand banquet that had been passed down for 700 years. It was a grand banquet that belonged to the entire Ziyun planet, with the 5 main sects as the main characters. Every 20 years, the Ziyun Grand Banquet would be held by the 5 main sects in turn. 100 years was a cycle. In other words, every sect would hold a Ziyun Grand Banquet every 100 years. This year, in the year 1233 of the Ziyun era, it was the turn of the Shenin sect, one of the 5 main sects, to hold the Ziyun Grand Banquet. At that time, the leaders of the other 4 main sects would bring some disciples to the Shenin sect to participate in the Ziyun Grand Banquet. The date of the Ziyun Grand Banquet was set on the 10th of October, with the meaning of perfection. 700 years ago, the 5 main sects of the Ziyun planet, including the Shenin sect, had already found a place near the sect to hold the Ziyun Grand Banquet. However, even though the place was ready-made, it still had to be set up a year in advance, or else it would be too late. Since the end of last year, the Shenin sect leader had ordered to start setting up the venue for the Ziyun Grand Banquet. Thus, a group of Shenin sect elders and disciples had been busy since the end of last year. The Shenin sect's venue for the Ziyun Grand Banquet was a vast city. In the center of the city, there was a large empty space for the 5 main sects to use for the Ziyun Grand Banquet. Within the city there was another ring of buildings. Without exception, these buildings were all inns that belonged to the Shenin sect. The area between the inns and the empty space in the center of the city was the city's free trade market. 10 days before the Ziyun Grand Banquet, this city would be open to the public. At that time, many people would come to trade for what they wanted before the Ziyun Grand Banquet began. The city where the Shenin sect held the Ziyun Grand Banquet was named Xianyan City. The first word was taken from the Shenin sect's name, and the second word was taken from the Ziyun Grand Banquet's name, Yen. The Xianyan City will open in 15 minutes. On the morning of the 30th of September 1233 of the Ziyun era, the sun had just risen from the east. Many people were already standing outside the 4 gates of Xianyan City, which was located between the Shenin sect and the Shenin kingdom. Besides the many people standing outside the 4 city gates, there were also many people standing in the air above the city walls. Most of them were standing or sitting on the backs of flying beasts, and there were also some primal core adepts standing in the air. However, before Xianyan City was officially opened, no one dared to fly into Xianyan City, not even a group of primal core adepts. This was because, at this moment, there were many people standing in the air above the surrounding walls of Xianyan City. These were the Xianyan sect elders and disciples who had been sent to maintain order in Xianyan City. There was no lack of mid-primal core adepts among them. With the deterrence of these elders and disciples of the Shenin sect, no one dared to act recklessly. "Old man Li, you're here too? If I had told you that you were coming, I would have come with you. This journey from the Thousand Autumns Empire has been really boring." In the void outside Shenyang City, an old man surrounded by pale white mist said to another old man standing in the air not far away. "You didn't ask me." The latter shook his head. These two old men were both from the Thousand Autumns Empire. They were old acquaintances and were both early primal core adepts. The Thousand Autumns Empire was an empire under the Thousand Autumns sect, one of the 5 great sects of the planet of Ziyun. It was very far from the Shenyang Empire, and there was also the Xinguang Empire between them. These two old men had traveled thousands of miles just to join in on the excitement of the Feast of Ziyun. For the Feast of Ziyun, apart from the inner area which could not be entered by people who were not members of the 5 main sects of the planet of Ziyun, the outer area did not restrict spectators. As such, every time the Feast of Ziyun was held, there would be crowds of people from all over the planet of Ziyun. In the planet of Ziyun, there were many people who were proud of being able to witness the Feast of Ziyun once in their lifetime. "It's open." After a quarter of an hour, many people exclaimed as the 4 city gates of Shenyang City slowly opened. In the next moment, the group of people outside instantly flowed into Shenyang City like a river. From afar, it looked as if a group of ants had voluntarily sent themselves into the bloody mouth of a giant beast. The people who entered Shenyang City came from all over the planet of Ziyun. There were people from the 5 great empires, and there were also some outsiders. The so-called outsiders referred to those who were not in the 5 great empires or practicing in the 5 great sections. They could be non-affiliated practitioners or they could have families or sects outside of the planet. For example, the 16 countries of the East Valley and the 14 countries of southern Jiang near the Xinguang Empire belonged to the outsiders. As for the people inside, they belonged to the category of people who were not part of the world. Generally speaking, outsiders generally had low levels of practice because of the lack of resources. However, there were a few exceptions, and these people were basically people who had great encounters and opportunities. "Young master, Shenyang City should be in front." In the south of Shenyang City, above the clouds, a huge black shadow broke through the clouds and swooped down. In the blink of an eye, it was near Shenyang City. This huge black shadow was actually a huge black eagle with a blazing golden crown on its head. It looked majestic and awe-inspiring. And on its back sat a handsome young man dressed in clothes whiter than snow. In front of the young man, a little girl of about 8 or 9 years old sat on his lap. She pointed at Shenyang City. "Big brother, Shenyang City seems to have opened." "Great, we don't have to wait anymore." The little girl's pink face was filled with excitement. The young man in white was Zhou Donghuang, who had come from the Xinguang Empire. Seeing his sister Yun Lu so happy, the corners of his mouth turned up in a rare smile. "Little Gold, go and find an inn to stay in," Zhou Donghuang said to the golden-crowned eagle. "Yes, young master." Little Gold responded, and with a flap of his wings, he turned into a bolt of lightning and flew into Shenyang City. Shenyang City was much smaller than the capital of the Xinguang Empire, but from a bird's-eye view, it was filled with people. It was no less than the number of people shuttling through the capital of the Xinguang Empire. The inns in Shenyang City were under the control of the Shenin sect. Different rooms had different prices. The best courtyards did not even accept gold or silver, only spirit stones. 1 spirit stone per night. From the opening of Shenyang City until the end of the Feast of Ziyun, a total of 10 nights, would cost 10 spirit stones. It must be noted that even among the top 5 sects of Ziyun, only adepts who had attained the primal core stage were qualified to receive spirit stones from the sections. But early primal core adepts could only receive 1 spirit stone per month. Even for the middle primal core stage elders, although they received more spirit stones every month, they could only receive 3 spirit stones per month. Because of this, very few people could afford to stay in the best courtyards of the inns in Shenyang City. Even if they could afford it, few could bear to do so. Before the Feast of Ziyun began, besides the Shenin sect, the guests from the other 4 sects of Ziyun were all staying at the Shenin sect. Under such circumstances, the best courtyards of the inns in Shenyang City were usually left empty. 100 years ago, the inn in Shenyang City had a total of 5 best guest rooms, but they were all unused. This time, the people of the Shenin sect further reduced the number of best guest rooms in Shenyang City, leaving only 3. The elders and disciples of the Shenin sect who were in charge of the inns had thought that even though there were only 3 best courtyards left, no one would stay in them. However, they did not expect that on the first day of Shenyang City's opening, someone would already be staying in one of the best guest rooms. Wow. Brother, this courtyard is huge. The people who stayed in the best courtyard of the inns in Shenyang City were Zhou Donghuang Yunlu, and the golden-crowned eagle Little Gold. The entire courtyard was Little Gold's bed. As for Zhou Donghuang and Yunlu, they each had a room and there were only 2 rooms in the courtyard. There was no third room even if they wanted to. 1 spirit stone per night in the courtyard and there are only 2 rooms in it. The Shenyang sect is really unscrupulous. Little Gold spoke in the human language and cursed. The fewer the rooms, the fewer the people staying in it. If it was a group of 4 people who could not sleep in the same room and wanted to stay in the best courtyard, unless they used the sky as their tent and the ground as their bed, or if they set up their own tents, they would have to ask the inns for 2 courtyards. This way the inns could earn twice as much money. Brother, are we going out now? Yunlu looked at Zhou Donghuang expectantly. Zhou Donghuang nodded. He had come to Shenyang City so early because of the free trade market in Shenyang City. 10 days before the Feast of Ziyun, people from all over the Ziyun planet were doing business in the free trade market in Shenyang City. Zhou Donghuang had come early to see if there was anything he wanted that even the Divine Light sect did not have in Shenyang City's free trade market. Of course, this was only the secondary purpose of his visit. This time, his main purpose was to resolve the possible threat from Qin Dandan. After all, he would be leaving the Ziyun planet soon, and he could not leave behind such a threat to his family. He could have gone directly to the Shenyang sect. However, after knowing that the Feast of Ziyun was about to begin, he was no longer in a hurry. This was because resolving Qin Dandan's problem at the Feast of Ziyun was far more effective than going directly to the Shenyang sect. At that time, not only would the Shenyang sect be able to see it, but the other 4 major sects of the Ziyun planet would also be able to see it. Furthermore, people from all over the Ziyun planet would also be able to see it. If he made a move at the Shenyang sect, he would at most be able to intimidate the Shenyang sect. However, if he made a move at the Feast of Ziyun, he would be able to intimidate the entire Ziyun planet. He would not have to worry about anyone daring to cause trouble for his family after he left the Ziyun planet. Chapter 197. The Feast of Ziyun was the highlight of the festivities for the people from all over the planet of Ziyun. They could not afford to miss it, so they had to come early. While they waited, the free market in Shenyang City became a place for them to kill time. Some people had rare treasures that they could sell to the people of Ziyun. If they met a suitable buyer, they could sell it for a good price. Brother, does this look good? Brother, I want this. Brother, this looks good too. In Shenyang City's free trade market, a little girl of about 8 or 9 years old walked past the various stalls. As long as she was interested in something, the young man in white behind her would not be stingy and buy it all for her. This scene caused many people to shake their heads. They felt that this young man was not a good brother and would spoil his little sister sooner or later. There were also many stall owners who could not wait for the little girl to take a liking to the things in their stalls. Along the way, the young man's extravagance attracted the attention of many people, but no one dared to do anything because there were people from the Shenyang sect maintaining order in Shenyang City. Unless they left the city, no matter how jealous they were of the young man's wealth, they could not do anything about it. Old man, your broken sword looks like an antique and it's quite unique. How much is it? A voice came from the front, causing Yunlu to stop and look curiously. Zhou Donghuang, who was following behind Yunlu, also stopped and looked in the direction of Yunlu's gaze. With just a glance, he saw an old man in a gray robe sitting cross-legged behind a stall, and a broken sword was placed horizontally on top of his stall. The broken sword was only 1 foot long, and the hilt was intact, but the blade was broken off. Although the broken sword had not rusted, it still looked ancient. Upon closer inspection, one could see that on the surface of the broken sword, there were many intricate patterns. 100 spirit stones. The old man had been resting with his eyes closed, but hearing the question, he suddenly opened his eyes and glanced at the middle-aged man in front of the stall. As soon as he said this, not only was the middle-aged man stunned, but even the group of people who had been paying attention were shocked. 100 spirit stones? Even the late primal core elders of the 5 great sects of Ziyun did not receive so many spirit stones from their sects in a year. Is this old man crazy? A broken sword like this for 100 spirit stones? He's going crazy thinking about spirit stones. As soon as the old man finished speaking, before the middle-aged man in front of the stall could say anything, many people surrounded him and attacked the old man. Facing the attacks of the crowd, the old man's eyes turned cold. Suddenly, a faint white halo appeared around his body and lifted him up into the air. He sat cross-legged in the air. Seeing this, the group of people who were still criticizing the old man shut their mouths one after another, not daring to say another word. Oh my God! This old man was actually a primal core adept? The middle-aged man in front of the stall had originally intended to mock the old man, but upon seeing the old man display the skills of a primal core adept, his expression changed, and he immediately shut his mouth tightly, not daring to utter another word. Oh! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the old man raised his hand, and a wisp of inner yuan flew out and picked up the broken sword from the stall. It floated in the air in front of him. I obtained this broken sword by chance, and it is not afraid of the true samadhi fire. As the old man spoke, his inner yuan condensed into the true samadhi fire, which wrapped around the broken sword. But as time passed, not only did the broken sword not show any signs of melting, but it even maintained its previous dark green color, showing no signs of being burned red. Not only is it not afraid of the true samadhi fire, even if I used the true samadhi fire to burn it continuously for 3 days and 3 nights, its blade and hilt would still be bone-chillingly cold, and would not be heated in the slightest. The old man continued. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man closed his eyes again and retracted the true samadhi fire. His whole body slowly descended to the ground, and he sat cross-legged again. And the broken sword also landed on top of the stall at the right time. Not afraid of the true samadhi fire? Even a spirit weapon can be melted by the true samadhi fire, right? What exactly is this broken sword? The spirit weapons used by primal core adepts are primal core spirit weapons. But even an ultimate primal core spirit weapon can be melted by the true samadhi fire of an early primal core adept. Could this broken sword be a Dharma spirit weapon? Dharma spirit weapon? Dharma spirit weapons are spirit weapons used by Dharma adepts, and they require the true samadhi fire of the Dharma adept's inner yuan to be able to melt them. The people present had come from all over the Ziyun planet, and there was no lack of knowledgeable people among them. From their conversations, it seemed like they suspected that the broken sword was a Dharma spirit weapon. If it is a Dharma spirit weapon, even if it is broken, 100 spirit stones is not considered expensive. That's true. Although many people suspected that the broken sword was a Dharma spirit weapon and felt that 100 spirit stones was not expensive, no one stepped forward and took out 100 spirit stones to buy the broken sword. Firstly, it was because no one present could produce that many spirit stones. Secondly, it was all just speculation. Even if there were people present who could produce that many spirit stones, they might not have the courage to do so. This sword, I want it. Just as more and more people gathered to watch, a young man dressed in robes whiter than snow appeared in front of the stall, attracting the attention of the crowd. The old man opened his eyes again and looked at Zhou Donghuang. 100 spirit stones. Zhou Donghuang did not speak. In front of the crowd, he took out 100 spirit stones from the space ring in his hand and casually sent them to the old man in the air. The milky white inner yuan was reflected in the eyes of the crowd, continuously attacking their pupils and their hearts. Just now, when this young man who looked no more than 20 years old, had stood up and said that he wanted to buy the broken sword, the crowd had thought that he was joking. 100 spirit stones was not something that an impulsive young man could produce. However, when the young man really took out 100 spirit stones and sent them to the old man with the milky white inner yuan, the doubts in their hearts were instantly shattered. Mid-primal core adept? My God! If his age is really what he looks like, his martial arts talent can be said to be extraordinary. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the owner of the stall, the old man, was stunned for a moment before regaining his senses. He took the 100 spirit stones and kept them in his pocket. Thank you, my lord. The old man stood up and bowed to the young man to thank him. On the planet of Ziyun, where the strong were respected, the strong were respected. Even though the young man in front of him looked no more than 20 years old, the level of practice that he had displayed was enough to make the old man bow. Zhou Donghuang nodded slightly. With a wave of his hand, his inner yuan wrapped around the broken sword and brought it to his hand. Then he stored it in his space ring. The broken sword, just as the few people present had guessed, was indeed a Dharma spirit weapon used by Dharma adepts. However, it was not an ordinary Dharma spirit weapon. It was an ultimate Dharma spirit weapon. Even though the inscriptions on it were incomplete, according to Zhou Donghuang's calculations, it was still enough to unleash the power of a mid-grade Dharma spirit weapon. When I enter the Dharma stage, I can use my inner yuan to condense the fourth true fire, reforge it and rearrange the inscriptions. Then, it will be able to unleash the power of an ultimate Dharma spirit weapon. Zhou Donghuang thought to himself. Under the silent gazes of the crowd, the young man dressed in white slowly walked away into the distance. The little girl beside him also skipped happily as she followed him. Looking at the backs of the young man and the little girl, many people felt a lingering fear in their hearts. He's actually a primal core adept? My God. Just now, when I saw him spending so much money to buy things for that little girl, I got greedy. If not for the fact that the Shenin sect was maintaining order in Shenyang City, I would have robbed him long ago. Me too. Now that I think about it, I really saved my life. Zhu Lianqing was a disciple of the Shenin sect. His level of practice was at the early primal core stage, but because he was not even 50 years old, his treatment in the Shenin sect was no less than that of an ordinary elder. Most importantly, his teacher was the second elder of the Shenin sect, a late primal core adept. His teacher was also one of the 2 golden essence elders of the Shenin sect. In the Shenin sect, Zhu Lianqing was like a member of the Crown Prince faction. The group of elders in the Shenin sect, whether they were of the mid or late primal core stage, did not dare to provoke him lightly. Dharma spirit weapon? A mid-primal core adept. Zhu Lianqing had seen everything that had just happened. His eyes flashed and he silently followed the young man in white. Although he felt that his movements were silent, Zhou Donghuang had already noticed him. However, Zhou Donghuang did not care about him. Because he was lazy. And because he did not care. It was only when he saw the young man bring the little girl back to the inn that Zhu Lianqing stopped and turned to leave Shenyang City, returning to the Shenin sect. Teacher, I saw a young man in Shenyang City spend 100 spirit stones to buy a seemingly damaged Dharma spirit weapon. After Zhu Lianqing returned to the Shenin sect, he found his teacher, the second elder of the Shenin sect, Li Pingzhi. Dharma spirit weapon? Li Pingzhi was an old man in a loose black robe. His face was full of wrinkles and his body exuded an aura of vicissitudes. It was obvious that he was not young anymore. However, after hearing Zhu Lianqing's words, his eyes lit up. Are you sure it was a Dharma spirit weapon? I'm not sure. Zhu Lianqing shook his head. However, the person who sold the broken sword was an early primal core adept. And the person who bought the broken sword was a mid-primal core adept. Furthermore, that mid-primal core adept looked to be at most 20 years old. His appearance does not match his true age. He must have taken good care of himself to look so young. End of this chapter. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.